What's up, everybody? This is KARAK with ACG, and I'm here with Silver and Johnny for the Best Gaming Podcast, July 5th edition, day after the July 4th events. I hope you guys all had fun if you did. If you didn't, because you don't, celebrate it, well, we hope to have a good time with you and maybe have you have an enjoyable time with us as well. We're going to talk about the First Descendant. We're going to talk about Shadow of the Erd Tree. We're going to talk about a couple things with the esports divisions. Celebrate Friday. Enjoy a fun podcast and hopefully not get sunburned inside the house somehow because it is hot outside like a motherfucker. Is it warm where you guys are?
Do you have a tradition? I was just curious. Do you have a tradition or something? Yeah.
We used to go down to a local river that was nearby, but unfortunately we moved out of that city, and the local river here is more like for people on inner tubes and, going through different places and sitting on their boats and shit like that. So not really. We can hear them from here, and they sounded ridiculous. They went on for a long ass time, but for the most part, no, we don't do much. I mean, when you have dogs, you're either at home taking care of them, or they're a dog that's fine with going out and doing things. But for the most part, ours would probably panic if you took them out and that many people, and then also threw some fireworks at their faces. Because there's some big fireworks. I mean, America's like, let's do, I was teasing Jay Reaper saying, in America, if you can't find a firework, you just go to the gas station, buy 5 gallons of gas, put it in a container, and light that fucker on fire. Like, that's somebody's blowing something up, no matter what.
And especially dogs can really suffer with the
it's pretty loud. It's like it's a pretty loud situation where you probably don't want them having to deal with it anyway, just because of their ears being sensitive. I know you guys don't do 4th of July, but you do New Year's Eve, obviously. Most of us do something for New Year's Eve. Do you guys have a place you go? Like, do you go to a particular pub, or do you go to a particular event location and hang out with friends? Or do you have particular friends you hang out with for events like that?
Not really anymore. I mean, I used to shoot off fireworks back in the day when I was a younger man. But I did sort of lose my appetite for it as I grew older, and now I will sometimes go outside and just watch it at New Year's. It's also very strictly, fireworks is very strictly regulated here. Although we do have an amusement park right in the middle of downtown Copenhagen that during the summer send up fireworks late in the evening when it's dark. So you can see that as well. But that's about the extent of it. I don't really enjoy shooting off fireworks and stuff myself anymore. Not really.
I can see that. What about you, Johnny?
Just family, mom and dad. I sometime, like in my younger, my 20s, I used to go to fireworks. And what I realized is that you always have the worst seat in the house compared to when you're able to watch it at home. They have the perfect cameras, right? It's just the beautiful angles.
Yeah.
Like BBC, they just show you perfectly the fireworks.
Right.
And that's a much more enjoyable experience usually than wherever you happen to be, trying to catch, from the side, from an angle, and everybody screaming and tossing cans of beer.
Yeah.
Luckily, get trampled.
Luckily here, there's a lot of safety in place for our New Year's. Again, moving on so that people know if they jump in, we're talking about New Year's versus July 4th, because obviously a lot of people don't celebrate that.
Yeah, but different thing.
For New Year's, we do, I see those videos. I see people, it used to be like the dropping of the, what do you call it? And was it the apple in the Big Apple? I think that's what it was in New York. You used to see that when you were a kid and that kind of stuff. I love fireworks, but lately in the last 5 years, it's been so dangerous fire-wise. There's been burn bans and all this kind of stuff. And so throwing off a firework or two is probably not the best.
There is something cool. It just so happens that on the 4th of July, it's my saint name day. So in Spain, we have this big thing where we have saint name days. So, a bunch of people have names after saints. So in my case, John, that's after, there's a Saint John on the 4th. It's technically my name day, they call it. In Spain, some people treat it almost as a birthday, to that level of like
Damn.
importance. Your name day. Yeah.
Well, I mean, anybody who has a
Same
half
thing with
birthday will
cities and
tell you.
towns that also have like a patron saint.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
Anybody will
That's
celebrate
birthday.
another side birthday if they can. Like if you're a
Oh,
birthday
if you can
celebrator
get
already,
like an extra
Any
gift
excuse to
or-
party. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Mine
yeah.
because mine's so near Christmas, you'd get that other. You get my parents being like, "We're gonna have a half birthday," so people can do stuff without it being Christmas and all that shit coming together. And I was like, hell yeah. If we're gonna have two half birthdays, better one full birthday. You're still getting away with ignoring a bunch of your duties, and well, at least I did. It was a chore free day, which was always nice.
Yeah.
If you did something cool, pop off in the chat for your 4th of July. If you got to have some good times or bad times, feel free to pipe off there as well. Let's jump into probably Let's talk about Dead Rising Remaster first. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but they did they have the pre-orders live and everything, and so people are complaining that Frank West looks different, which I understand. Frank West would look different because, of course, different technology.
Right.
We're years later, but they did do something weird. They have Frank West as a DLC skin, the original Frank West.
Oh.
And I got to tell you guys, we can just talk around this, not because we don't want to talk about it. That's about it for the discussion of that game in particular. But it is sometimes funny where we all sit here and, you know a friend and you try to give him the best shot at life or at a success. And then you see Capcom go, hey, man, we're doing really well with the Resident Evil stuff. Let me make it so that the one thing everybody has an issue with, they can pay to sort of get around them. You're like, Now, I personally don't mind the new one at all. But
I don't really think he looks that much different from the old one.
it's really just that facial structure thing, and how people age. You go look at,
Right.
some of the people you may have followed when they were kids. You look at them, even teens, you look at them now and you're like, oh, and there's a big change to their facial structure. It's more that, but it's just along the line, Silver, of like, you don't need to harm yourself in today's current gaming environment, right? Like let something bad happen. Don't make it happen to you is all. And it just seems like a little bit of mistake on their part. A little bit of it's Capcom too, because they had the Dragon's Dogma thing. They've had stuff with Resident Evils. They're always in this discussion.
They always have a lot of stuff behind paywalls.
Mhm.
They do a ton of small DLC, cosmetic stuff.
Yeah.
And
right.
if you go into Steam and you look for stuff, all of their games have just countless little things you can buy. Like Monster Hunter World, you could buy 20 different outfits for the handler, and that shows up as an item on Steam that you can buy for like $1 or $2. So yeah, that's practice for them.
Yeah, it's practice for them, and it's odd because everybody has a different idea of what bothers them with this stuff, because you have to sort of know that it's going to be in games. Unfortunately, regardless, but it does feel like at some point these companies, you're all, dude, if you could just step back a little bit and realize that you're harming yourself, let us get mad at you for whatever made up shit we do. And then that way you can be like, that's not on us, but this is like, it's on you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, it's also like picking what you put behind the paywall. I think nowadays is really important, because the perception can really backfire. Like you're saying, if the perception is that, well, they could have done the character very close to the original, and maybe some people would prefer that, but now that's locked behind a transaction.
Right.
That maybe feels shitty to some people. To me, it simply feels like a skin, maybe like a vintage skin.
I totally
and I'll be
understand
okay paying for that, if I really like it. But I get it. I think people honestly are becoming a little bit oversensitive about, I have to pay for this extra thing. I get it. I would love for everything to be, there, like they want included, but I just kind of take it at part and parcel of how people do business with games nowadays. Is that
I think I do too, Johnny.
Stuff.
I think this one probably bothers people more because the entire characterization of Dead Rising was around Frank and Chuck, more Frank because of his return, that it just feels weird that it's that character. Because, for example, You did have Chuck, the motocross racer, who was in 2 and in another case, I think, Dead Rising, another case, or a secondary, whatever the one was where Chuck replaced Frank in it, and it was a retelling.
I think it was the other way around.
Where Chuck replaced, or Frank replaced Chuck.
It was the DLC for Dead
Oh, no,
Rising
I'm talking
2
about the full game. I have it. It's a 360 game.
Okay.
And it's one of the two switched, but you are right. It might have been the other way around.
I mean, I think it was standalone, so they may have released it as its own. But it was Frank West going to the casino and stuff
being Chuck
in
and
Nevada,
going to the casino,
and being in Chuck's area.
They're character heavy, right? And I guess it feels a little bit like that with Resident Evil. If you had, let's say, somehow multiple versions of one of those characters, and one was a skin off the record. Thanks, Robert. That's what it was called, off the record. It just feels a little weird because there's other skins they could have thrown in. They have enough. Capcom's got enough Street Fighter. They could have been like, all right,
especially because like the vintage skins tend to be like are a pretty frequent feature of remasters. Like or even like newer games where like Tomb Raider, where you can play, I don't know, like the original, use the original Lara Croft model or whatever other games of that ilk, where they feature like older game bid versions of game models and stuff. I think that's a pretty frequent feature. So putting that stuff behind a paywall does seem really odd. But then again, as you guys mentioned, it is Capcom, and they have sort of monetized a lot of that stuff.
They know their shit, man.
The past 7 years, really.
Yep. They know how to jump in there and do it. But it's just one of those things. We'll have to see how it performs and stuff like that too. They've had issues in the past also with their, in particular, some of their DLCs or some of their games, not really being super performant. So I would like to see, especially even Dragon's Dogma 2 now has its second or third patch, and still isn't really as solid as a lot of people would like. So, but I think this game, the way they have it planned, and that it's a remaster versus a brand new game, they're probably in pretty good shape with it. Or I can hope they're in good shape with it. I'm gonna get it. I mean, everything about it looks like a game. I'm a huge fan of Dead Rising, so like, I can't see not getting that. Are you guys, or actually, I guess it would be more along the lines of Silver, because I don't think Johnny's played this one. Silver, are you more of a fan of Resident Evil versus Dead Rising as a series?
No, I wouldn't necessarily say I prefer one to the other, because they're very different. They do very different things. Dead Rising is a very fun pick up and play type game,
right?
I feel like, whereas Resident Evil is more sort of in depth for like longer sessions.
Dead Rising feels like, because it's one character and there's not been so many others other than Chuck, there's something about it that feels more character driven, weirdly enough, than Resident Evil does.
And also just like the silly hijinks you do in that game, from like cobbling the weapons together, improvising, all that stuff.
Putting a mask on a zombie's head and then punching
playing around with the zombie crowds mechanics and stuff
was
like
it
that.
Story heavy, or was it more...
It's pretty story heavy.
It's story heavy,
It's story heavy, yeah. It's not necessarily cutscenes either. A lot of it is like this organic, you hear things and stuff too.
But,
I mean, really it depends. You can do it non-story at all, because basically you start in the mall and then you have a timer for when you're supposed to be picked up by a helicopter, and then you can kind of do whatever you want. So if you don't want to follow the story quest and you don't want to do story content, but you just want to mess around in the mall, you can kind of do that, but you're going to miss out on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like at that type of game, that's more a speed, not almost like a speed run. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, because it's
and you will get an ending. It just won't be a great ending.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would be the typical. Good job.
That's cool.
So
free
to do
it. It sounds like there's a bit more meat to the bone than I thought. Because
there's quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, because I always, for some reason, thought it was kind of like pure arcadey around the gameplay itself. But yeah, that's cool to know that there
are lots of different endings to the game. Lots.
Yeah. And that's something we don't see too much, like the different endings. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. It kind of feels like it's more of an more common in older games. I'm thinking Deus Ex and all these, slightly older games, that Mass Effect, that have a ton of different endings. We see a couple of them. Liza P did it. I'm trying to think of other recent games that had. Obviously, Elden Ring has, a plethora of endings.
Baldur's Gate, but let's not go there because those kind of games are pretty hard to compare to this kind of game. But before somebody jumps in, is like Baldur's Gate, we know,
Baldur's Gate,
Dead Rising is a Resident Evil style game in and of itself, but then with a more open world location and less restrictions. The one where Resident Evil is inventory Tetris to the extreme, even going so far as taking your weapons sometimes because you need to go through a gate or whatever, and all that weird shit. There's a couple missions in Dead Rising that do that, but for the most part, Dead Rising is about the creativity of the player. It's all about the creativity.
Yeah.
So you just and then, do you want to save people? How do you want to save them? Are you not going to save them? You're going to dress up like Ken or Rue from Street Fighter and run around and kill people in Dead Rising 4, or what vehicles will you make in Dead Rising 3? So there's a lot of different stuff you can do. There's something about that system for putting together weapons in Dead Rising that you can spend an entire weekend just sitting back going, okay, I want to make this weapon, and I want to go get this blueprint, but the time limit then is consistently, just ticking down a little bit each moment you're doing something.
Is that a cool feature or more of something to work around the time limit?
I liked it.
It's a really cool feature.
Yeah. I had fun with it, but then after repeated playing, there were times where I was like, I just really want to go get this thing. Luckily, there's all kinds of ways to do that.
It's also something that emphasizes the the replayability of the game, because it is. As I think limiting. We may have talked about it before, in that it plays a bit like a roguelite, in that when you complete the game, it saves your stats and then allows you to start over with those stats and carry those over into the new game that you make. So you keep learning and you keep developing your skills as you're playing, and you keep learning. Like as you're going through, you learn, at around 8 p.m. on the first day, this character is going to be here, and this character is going to be here. As you get further and further along, you then learn to sort of how to coordinate and how to set up events so that you can maximize efficiency and save like everybody eventually.
That's almost like Hitman or something.
It is very like Hitman.
Kind of, yes.
Yeah. Because, so the other thing about Dead Rising it's not unique. It's just that it feels good and it's put together well, is that everything that you get or find is either attached to the timer in the idea that you're going to now kill enemies faster, or attached to the timer that you're going to kill enemies in a more fun way, but that's sort of any game. And so when you do find new weapons and you find ways to go through things, or you find ways to take out the psychos in 1 in particular, or in 4, they changed their name. There's something about it that the timer works really well in that way, where you start looking at the timer and it's like time to kill, but it's like, time to zombie kill is gone a little, it's gone a little lower because I've got this other weapon. I've got this broadsword now because I stole it from a sword replica shop. And that's the other thing. Their shops are so good. Like when you go into the mall, every shop you can go into, and it was one of the first games where it felt like that. So you would go in, there'd be a paintball shop, or there isn't a paintball shop, but you get my drift. There's always something. There's always some place to go, and just a new pair of shoes or whatever. It was awesome. 4 sucked in a lot of ways. Yeah, whatever. I thought 4 was actually a blast, but
and all the stuff you can use as weapons, from porcelain plates to whatever.
Dude, you'll get plates. You get a pile of plates at the hot dog place, and just go viz, 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 and you're just bouncing them off the zombie's head. It barely does any damage, but it's like Shaun of the Dead in that way, so you can replicate those zombie style.
Or taking a bucket and putting it over the zombie's head.
That's one of my favorite things to do. I don't know why, but being like, boom,
Yeah.
and watching them bump around, you're like, dude, this is a blast, man. Or getting the weed whack, not the weed whacker, but the old lawnmower from the 70s with no motor, and it's just got the blades, and you're like,
the rotors,
And he has these little one-liners that are so dumb, but they're so funny. And then there's a lot of alchemy, you could call it, but you're mixing the drinks when you go to like the juice stations, and you're mixing like orange juice with something else.
Yeah, and your beer hat.
Your beer hat. Yeah, dude. So great.
There's some fun ideas there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say this, when it comes down to it, it is what it is. I'm unhappy that we're seeing it like this, because I would love to see that skin be in the game and multiple skins be in the game, because Capcom has skin in the game. Pun intended.
Yeah,
they've got 800,000 games, and many of them are built on multiple lovable characters. I say double down on giving and double down on seeing what you can get, instead of just double down on the one skin. To me, also, you know how lately I can tell, remember when Cyberpunk was like, we're sorry. And from that point on, everybody knew exactly what sorry meant, because you see a JPEG. We're sorry, the Cyberpunk apology. Now it is the video game pre-order, and it's just 3 tiles every fucking time to show you the 3 things you get. They've decided 3 seems to be the best, like 3 tiles. Even if they have multiple things in the tile, sort of the way they do it. Dude, I can't wait for a game that says, you know what the pre-order is, man? It's like 9 skins. It's 10 weapons. It's to where it feels like, oh, that pre-order, not 3 days early. Fuck that. That's stupid. Mm-hmm. But be like, hey, man, here, if you want to pre-order, we're going to give you a reason to pre-order. First, I hate pre-orders. But if you're going to do them, if you give more, I think gamers will give you more. If you feel like you're getting something, you'd be like, hey, man, I got a bunch of stuff from this, but I don't run the business. Somebody at Capcom knows how to grift people. And I
will tell you right now, I'm the kind of person, if you tell me like I'm getting an extra skin because of the pre-order, I probably will do it, because I'm a sucker for different outfits and stuff.
Oh, somebody did say the Digital Deluxe has a bunch of Capcom skins. I just wanted to point out, I did see that. What I was talking about is the 3. Somebody has decided on the presentation of
layout.
Of the announcement, and that's what I don't like. There's something about it that feels template. Like, we focus tested this in 3 of these, or 4 of these, or 5 of these, and they're always in that sort of. There's something about it that makes me feel almost like a slot machine has gone off, and they're showing the 3 lines or 5 lines of a slot machine. If that makes sense, like, you see them popped up, and I'm like, I don't like that. It looks like something you asked 1,000 people what would entice them.
They make it look visually such that the one on the right, which is the pricey one,
of course,
is the best. It has a border. It looks fantastic. Like, there's shiny stuff in there.
Yeah. But thank you for reminding me, Doom. I appreciate that. So other than that, I'm really excited for the game. I can't wait.
Yeah.
It's another game this year.
Do we know, like, timeline for the game? Is it like next year? Yeah,
it was announced. No, it's this year. It's I had it written down, and then I closed those browsers to start this Dead Rising Remaster release date. I believe it's September or August. It's September 19th.
Nice.
Yep. September 19th. Let's look at this. Let's look at some more deets. Revamped version of the original Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, PC, apparently being billed as a true current gen experience. Hey, at least they said current gen, so we don't have that argument. Deluxe were some of the bonuses. Chuck Green, Willamette Parkview, Mall B's mascot costume. That's actually pretty cool. Again, it's pretty cool that it's in there. It's not cool that you have to, wait to get it. But yeah, Johnny, I believe, personally, just knowing what you've played, I believe you will, if the game doesn't have technical issues, you will absolutely love it. If the game does, I think you will love it, because it's not the typical zombie kind of.
Mm-hmm.
It's not dire, but it is. But it's also a little like the feeling of Monster Hunter at times, where you find, like you're just, but not trying to hunt down enemies. It just the exploration and the movement from place to place. There's something about it that feels Capcomish, and they did a good job. Let's see. To have the option to turn off the timer in the remaster version would be nice. Yeah, it would be delicious. They really need to do that, especially because we've seen it happen and it's been fine. So yeah, I like it. I'll leave it on. But with that, it's like, dude, just let the timer figure something else out that you want to. Just let the timer be a thing. But I liked the timer. I know a lot of people didn't. And it sounds like, and Silver also, liked the timer.
it kind of is. You have like 3 days in game to sort of, and when the timer runs out, you get an ending, and then you can just start over. So you can kind of play it endlessly without really worrying about the timer.
That's what you want to do. If you say that, people are going to be like, "That's not the same." I agree with you, though. It's almost like when people want every RPG choice in a game where they're a bad guy. Yeah. I want the good guys' choices too, and you're like, dude, that's not how this shit works, man. It's not gonna. But moving on from there, anybody who's getting it, I'd like to know what your hopes are for Dead Rising before we move on. Yes, we are still giving away the Elden Ring. I've already got the winner. We'll give away a copy of the Erd Tree DLC, or a Steam card equal, or a card equal on your store, whatever we need to do. And I've got that one chosen. I want to first, though, talk about the First Descendant. So, dude, this is a game that was released in 2024. It is the most blah middle line game I've seen in years. It's every single thing about it is meh. We jumped in to play it, and it's so interesting because you'll see one part where the graphics look really good, and then you'll be walking around and nothing's interactable, and then you'll get a cool looking gun and you fire, and there's almost no recoil in the game at all other than the handgun. Handgun's got a pretty cool recoil. In fact, some of the machine guns are lasers. They're just like, there's no feedback on anything.
Which game was it? Sorry.
First Descendant. It's the Nexon, the big like free to play, And by the way, I'm giving this kudos for being free to play, because I think there's, it's a good price. It's a good price. But it is one of the most blah games. You start out with 3 characters. You can choose a dude, a girl, and a robot, big guy. And each one has their special skills. Like I chose the machine gunner first, which is just like a grenade, vortex grenade, which is amazing, by the way. You drop this thing and it sucks all the enemies in. It's great. It feels good. You throw it on bad guys. If a boss is dropping ads, you throw it on a bad guy. But here's the thing. 4 hours. Never died. Never even came close to being in damage. And the problem with this game, one of the first things it does is it wants you on the cycle of buying. So they start easy. The problem is they go easy forever. Easy to the point to where the enemies are, we have videos of like going in and the enemies in the boss battle, enemies not moving at all. They're just standing there. And you're like, what the shit? Or they saddle slightly to the side. But it's a free-to-play game, right? So it's going to be about, like, the grind and leveling up. Grind isn't too bad. I say that isn't too bad for these kind of games. But the overall feel of it is almost like... It reminds me of all those other free-to-play games you get in where a nondescript character can move around and shoot shit. That's the problem. It feels like every single thing you've ever played. Even the character movement has nothing to it that ever feels special. It just feels... It feels like a character that is moving in a Unreal blueprint. Yeah, it is really awe-inspiring in how blah they made it. I mean, in a way, I think we'll be talking about it for a while in here about game design. When you look at it, you're like, whoa, these guys are pretty good at making sure that nobody feels above or below average. This is solidly a thanks for showing up, everybody gets an award kind of game and gameplay feel. Sorry about the dogs. So it's just got this really odd blahness to it that surprises me. But at the same time, their HUD is a lot better. Their ability, than many games I play, the ability to upgrade your weapon is super easy versus Division, where you're waiting on slow, HUDs and all this kind of stuff to update. So there's that. Did either one of you guys play this yet? Have either one of you guys? Okay, no. I would suggest you try it, man. I would see, here's the thing. If you want to... We've all played free-to-play games. If you want to jump into a game and shoot some guys, there's far worse. And it's easy, so you ain't going to die. Ever. And I mean ever. The worst players in our Discord haven't died yet. At all. It's taking on bosses.
That's not really appealing. That's not really selling me.
I'm not saying it's selling you. I'm adding all the different things combined so you can take this in. Because I know it won't sell you. Because the other thing that's cool about this is the Descendants are people you unlock, right? And so you are starting out with pretty generic on purpose. But when you start looking at those other descendants that you unlock, things start actually getting pretty interesting because a lot of their skills work with others. And I can see once the game, it's now unlocked hard, but you have to play for a while. Once that game unlocks hard for some people, I could see it being a cool little,
Like
I mean, it's a hamster wheel.
synergies.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels, in that way, it feels like, hey, this could be fun with, 2 or 3 of us running around, joining up, taking out these enemies. And let me tell you how weird this is. You go into the first space and it tells you how long the mission's average is. And we're talking like 1 minute, 30 seconds for a full mission. It'll pop up and be like mission time 1 minute or mission time 2 minutes, more than 1 minute. But it feels like Armored Core 6 at times when you would go into a spot and you do a thing, you'd kill 6 people, boom, you're out, right? That's the way this feels. So there's, as blah as it is, there's something to be said for it costs nothing. And therefore anything it gives back to you above
barely get
above
nothing.
the status. You do barely get nothing, but I could see that later on that grind might be something. You might find that descendant that you're like, I sort of like this guy.
Is there something to be said about like the graphics or like the presentation? Is there something unique there?
No, this is robotic, futuristic, shooter,
like
third person.
Stellar Bladey.
No, in fact, there's a lot of places where it's just some rocks that you jump up in a tunnel and you go through it and fight some guys.
Yeah.
There are times where there's some thought put into it, but it doesn't have the level of time that a single player game does have on its locations.
Yeah.
It skews multiplayer in that way. Most of the time, other than Division, most games skew sort of that way. But I genuinely, I can't say you should get it because it's good. At all.
You were unhurt by
I was unhurt.
experiencing
I was unharmed by my experience playing it. It's also not great. It's just it's
there.
Like, it's pretty bad actually.
Yeah.
It exists. It's pretty bad, but it wouldn't
actively like.
Yeah, if you've been playing like me, The Division, it's got a bunch of bugs. And I can't play The Division with the bugs it's got now. They're atrocious. And all of a sudden,
that's too bad.
Yeah. Trust me, we could go. We're not going to go on that because I'll lose my mind. But I would suggest you look at it if you guys ever decide you want to jump in with people. It reminds me a bit of what Anthem. You know how Anthem had sometimes 15 or 30 seconds of some insanely good combat, and then the rest was rigmarole. This is as if it had 2 or 3 minutes of lesser combat, but there's no rigmarole. It's very like that in its presentation and feel. Just go here, go back to town, talk to a guy, talk to a dude with rabbit ears, talk to a chick with rabbit ears. Everybody's got rabbit ears. Why? Go back out, kill some guys. They probably have rabbit ears, come back home. And it's all robotic rabbit ears, not real ones. I'd like to see what you guys think of it, though.
Full release or some type of beta?
Yep. Okay, and it was bad, man. It was down for like a day and a half or 2 days. It had all kinds of issues, but it's free to play. So...
yeah,
it's like, real quick, the Frizzler, $5 super chat. Hey, best pod, I'm thinking of passing down my PS5. Do you think
the Pro? Like the PS5 Pro?
Oh, wow. Okay. Do you think the Pro will be out 4th quarter? Having problems with my Discord, can't get in. Okay. So you're asking if the Pro will be out this, I believe it is coming out. Isn't it supposed to be out this? I thought it was supposed to be out this fall.
I have no idea.
I stopped following it.
Yes.
I don't know if we know, but certainly rumors for sure.
Yeah. Dev Guy says there are no people bad at games in this Discord. What do you mean, ACG?
So he felt like targeted or something.
Yeah. Dev Guy's sitting back and he hears it and he's like, "Wait, is he talking about me?" No.
He got defensive.
He's good.
Yeah.
Him and Sleeve about 2-3 months ago. No, maybe 2 months ago now. Him and Sleeve did a Tekken event and that was hilarious.
I was there. Just the setup of it was painful though, because we were trying to connect.
Poor Sleeve. Sleeve hadn't played in a while, and Sleeve has memories of being able to play good, but you got to practice. And you're going up against Dev Guy, who that's his, other than tennis and, other than me, there's not many people. I think there's 2 other people on our Discord who play. He plays only Tekken, or mostly Tekken. And Sleeve was just like, juggle. You're just,
no, it is funny how those games similar to like League or something. If you don't play for a while,
Yeah.
like your skill level will drop.
Yeah.
Like, sure, some stuff is muscle memory and will come back quickly, but like your overall skill level will definitely take a plunge.
I mean, whether it be UFC, NBA players, NFL players, returning is called ring rust in boxing. Martial arts is called other things. It is a real thing. It does take a while for the brain to get those synapses back. They can still be there, but it takes a little bit for you to remember that guard is A or you know, back, whatever your this new game may be. But
so the timing.
Sorry, that is what I meant, was that you might know the button,
Like
but you may not know
tight with it.
Yeah, when it's tight. Yeah, when you've got that blink second. That was fun stuff. But I would suggest, you know, First Descendant is definitely not something I suggest anybody play. It's pretty blah. But I do suggest that if you have a gap, like I did, where for whatever reason your game's not loading, we all have that. Final Fantasy's been down a couple times as they were updating. Division 2's been down. You want to
throw yourself at something new.
Yeah, it's a free game. Load it up, you know. It's not good. It's in fact, I would say some of it is pretty bad, but it works in the, you know, when you get past the login issues they had, it works as a general game. And I felt like I got more time out of it than most before I felt the curve of grind. You know how some games you feel it right away? Some games you start playing and you're like, I know where this is going. This is headed towards Grindsville. You know, things are starting to get slow because they want me to pay $1.99 for an experience booster.
Right.
The upgrades are slowing down.
6 hours, and it was still blindingly easy, but there was no grind curve at that point. So I was like, you know what? There's a kudo at least for that, because a person can get 6 hours out of that. Shit, a Telltale game is 2 hours, you know? Like, Christopher Jetzer says ACG Once Human comes out next week and it's supposed to be like First Descendant. I like the supernatural look. Once Human. That's not the one Reg was playing, is it? Johnny? You and Reg?
I think it is. Yeah.
I don't think that looks much at all like First Descendant. Right? I mean, I watched you guys play.
Some more unique stuff.
When you were building houses, and it's a survival game.
Yeah, it's quite different.
Yeah, it's quite different.
It was also pretty rough, but also we were playing the multiplayer, and it was, you know, whatever, like the demo. Like
listen, guys, if Johnny and Reg get in a game, that game is going to be cursed. I've never. I watched Reg play that game for maybe 6 hours the day prior on stream, because he you know, we've been talking a bunch, and I'm like, hey man, you know, come in stream. So he jumps in, streaming. We're having such a good time. Everything's fine. I leave. I come back the next day. You're in there, and all I hear is this, like, oh, that's not loading. Oh, that's not loading. So it must be the co-op.
It's funny because they have the. Well, yeah, they had some technical issues with the co-op, but they also had some issues similar to what you're saying, where enemies aren't doing a ton to actually attack you.
Oh, and okay. Interesting.
It's kind of like a bit too easy. So it kind of felt like maybe some stuff wasn't turned on or turned up to where they would normally have it. But yeah, you know, we'll have to see. It's still, again, early demo.
Yeah,
I've learned to not judge a game by the demo at this point. You know,
it's only fair. It's a demo for a reason, right?
Yeah.
You never know exactly when, unless it's the Crew 2, where they try to pretend that it's a beta and it's 2 weeks prior. You're like, dude, that's not how it works. Ubisoft. They only tried that one time though. Have you guys ever had
that quite a few times
where they lied about the beta? Because I've been tracking this and I haven't found another where they stated in specifics that because it's a beta, a bunch of shit will be fixed, and this is not the final code. And that was 2 weeks prior. Are you sure?
Like I remember, like, Wildlands. They kind of called that a demo as well.
Wildlands.
What's his name? Ghost Recon.
Tom Clancy. Tom Clancy's Wildlands.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I tracked this one in particular because of how they pushed back so hard on missing items and features that never made it into Crew 2 or made it later, like the ability to create a crew, to actually do the namesake of the game. So Silver, is there a game that you've played where the co-op has been tremendously worse than the game? Like where you've jumped in, like Johnny and Reg jumping in, and it just absolutely a trash fire, like you and Lemon jumping into something?
Not really that comes to mind, no. I don't remember. Well, Honestly, I didn't feel the co-op in Baldur's Gate 3 worked all that well.
I
At
agree.
least not with original characters. I think maybe it works better if you just use the the ones that are already there.
Fair. Yeah.
But like using but both players using original characters, I felt like that really didn't work well.
It also had lots of performance issues, by the way, if you played in co-op with framiness.
Oh,
and instability.
gotcha. Yeah, that would make sense. I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah.
Maybe they fixed them. I don't know, but that definitely day one.
For me, the biggest experience I usually find isn't like the performance goes bad. I usually just find that the story, once you jump in, you don't know how it's going to go with the story. Like, is the story going to bust? Is it going to, just fall apart like it did Wasteland for you and Reg, where the shit just kept reloading? By the way, Reg said that he can get that to happen on a single player game too, Johnny. I don't know if you ever heard him say that,
okay,
but yeah, he said Wasteland's
not
issue.
Just
and it pisses me off a little bit about them, in particular, that developer. They still have a lot of bugs for Wasteland 3. And
yeah,
I feel like that game, the support for that game is pretty lacking.
I would agree.
I'm going to try to get him back on and talk about games. I'd like to ask him.
Many patches, for that game.
Not nearly enough as that needs. It definitely has. I mean, somebody in chat about a week ago was streaming it, and they were having all kinds of bugs with the story, driving the truck in the truck part. Remember when you drive around in the Duster vehicle and you're exploring?
Yeah.
And it was like, doing all kinds of crazy shit. And it felt like that game has not been abandoned, but maybe it's a small team and they don't, at some point they're like, well, this is what we get. But Wasteland's a big storyline to me. I'd love to see it.
It's a big game. It has a lot of like open world hard elements to get right. So I would have hoped for more.
Yeah. Go ahead, Silver.
Patching, fine tuning.
Just I feel like now that I think about it, the main thing that really bothered me about the co-op in Baldur's Gate 3 was the way the game tracks like in-character interpersonal relationships of the party kind of completely breaks with two players. Like the way you gain affection player.
Because there's two main characters in the game, basically.
Yeah, kind of. So it kind of breaks. That was unfortunate.
Yeah, you sort of would have to know your save. That's why, by the way, if there is other save games, we always start a new save game so that gets corrupted. Like, it's like,
right.
We'll jump over here because this might turn out really poorly for everybody involved. I'm excited to see, Clockwork Revolution from them, but I would love to have seen some patches. It feels like that game is probably in need of 3 or 4 major patches from everything I hear. And it sounds like people in the chat are even saying that they were having issues with it as well. So also, I don't know if you guys saw this little blurb, and this is something we've been talking about since GTA 5 was out when we started the podcast. No, would have been, maybe it was, but this is a cinematics editor claimed that GTA 5 story DLC was scrapped because GTA Online was a cash cow. And I think we all knew that. I think we all talked about that. But it is interesting that originally they promised it. Yeah. And originally they promised it and didn't really get it. So online's got a bunch of stuff, but I'm a little nervous about GTA 6, guys. Like, if GTA 6 becomes this online cash cow, what,
Yeah. It will all just go down that route because it will make sense, right? That's where the money's at.
Yeah. And because,
but I think to some extent, I don't know, maybe this is idealistic, but I kind of feel like at some point when you've made, as I catch myself.
Have you ever done that, man? You're in a group of people, you start to say something and your brain is like, whoa.
No,
Johnny,
that's stupid.
Stop talking.
I was going to say, at some point when you make enough money, like, in a way, it's not as much about the money anymore. It's like, where do I want to spend my time?
I'll tell you what.
Do I have fun creating
that can
this?
happen in one person. It for sure can.
Yes.
It's when it's a group
That's
of
how
people.
I caught myself. Because
or
it's
a corporation.
Not about, because it's not about the one indie developer. It's a group. It's a corporation.
And you have to push that. Like, let's say it's a new employee. I used to deal with this in my old job. New employees had something that we called like sort of the R factor, and that was the retirement factor. And that meant the person hadn't been there long enough to care to retire there or to care about being there. And so you had to foster this sense of community for them so that they bought in, so that if a person at top said, I want to do this, and everybody listened and identified issues, and then once that was chosen, it was fucking off to the races. And I got to tell you, one of the few companies I've ever worked with, when I saw people go off to the races at that company, it was awe-inspiring. It was like football coach levels of shit. Like he was a good speaker, but he was highfalutin, very eloquent, and there were times where you were like, what in the fuck did he just say? I got to go look that up. But you still were all, I get where he's going with this, but you had to get all the newcomers, a new programmer to come in, and they're thinking, I'm going to go to Silicon Valley, man. Why am I going to be in Oregon? So you have to make sure they're vetted, or sorry, not vetted, but vested. And you have to do it quickly. And you have to like, you know, sort of force them in and get them into that.
Yeah.
And I think that with a GTA, they're hiring a lot of people. You got to make sure all those people want it not only to do well forever, but not just be a quick bank. We sold 1 billion copies on day one. You want that game to be good, like GTA Online is good, and we've seen it fail with Red Dead Online. Red Dead Online was the cash cow worry I think many of us had, the disaster. I mean, Solar's one of the biggest. He's in our Discord. He's one of the biggest GTA fans of GTA Online and Red Dead, and even he starts to talk lovingly about what Red Dead 2's online could have been, and he mistakes it for what it was, and then he'll be like, wait, no, it wasn't. It wasn't that. It was my brain trying to tell me that's what I hoped, and therefore they'd hit it. I love your ideal, Johnny, of a excellent developer, but they're people too.
I think there is an element of like pride that the company probably wants to create something that builds onto the legacy.
For sure.
They probably view themselves as, you know, we create some of the best games out there, and they do want to, I think, create as a whole, like part of their marketing is like we create.
Yeah, I think they certainly care about the perception. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a side, not Silver.
Huh?
Silver, come on. That was a side saddle fucking comment. He was like, they care about the perception. I fucking picked up on
whether they actually care about being it is a different matter.
It
they certainly care about being perceived that way.
No, it's not. Yeah, exactly. I love it. I love it. I pretty much, I believe that some of the best companies in the world are those that realize that perception, if it's good, can become the reality that you continue to grow and continue to foster. But long-term continued fostering of that is quite difficult. It's quite difficult with anything. That's why marriages break up. That's why, I mean, any long relationship, whether it be consumer and creator, you know, even myself, it's like you have to be really understanding that things are going to fall apart. Newness is going to be entered in. How do you handle that? How do you keep your original ideas?
Because with GTA's like cycle, it's like 10 years between GTAs or something. Like
what is it? Yeah,
people enter and leave the industry in that amount of time.
Oh, yeah.
So like, you know, the people
companies do.
I mean, it's generational.
Like it is pretty much. It's
2013.
That's a good way to put it.
2013.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking like console generations. I'm talking human generations.
Human generations.
Almost human, because you know, like the average might be that someone works at one place for 10 years and then they move on. You know?
A person
I don't know
whose
what the
major
average
time frame of playing games was 2010 to 2020 should be called a goomer. Like a GTA zoomer, a goomer.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, I'm a goomer. You would just be able to identify it via the games you played. But yeah, man, it was just an interesting little post in the news. I don't know if anybody in chat finds that interesting, but I always find it interesting because I think we all sort of knew that. And this person's just one person, but I think it's something that that Rockstar needs to keep an eye on, because it could turn into a pretty heady problem for them, especially with Red Dead Online. Certainly not doing what they thought it was.
I mean, I also read recently that they've been doing shenanigans with GTA Online recently, where they've included features that are now locked behind the GTA subscription. Like the online subscription.
The money online subscription?
Yeah.
I have a feeling that's been going on, for a long time. Just in my head, I have a feeling that seems realistic that's happening. Moving on from there, let's talk a little bit about Dead Rising, Dragon's Dogma. This will be really short. So we had Digital Foundry did a video about their patch. Their patch that tried to fix some of the issues. Dead Rising is probably going to have issues forever. at least on console. I think somebody will probably mod patch it on PC or would just brute force the goddamn thing. But I had thought about this recently. Dragon's Dogma was high on the list of discussion topics here, especially for a couple months. I really enjoyed its gameplay and it's all this, and was laughing yesterday when somebody said, I don't remember anything about Dragon's Dogma story at all. Not a single character name or location, but I remember everything about the gameplay. Is there a desire, or do you mimic me, I guess, in this thought process? I'm not really hot on any excitement level currently for Dragon's Dogma 2 DLC. And I'm not 100% sure why. Are you guys, I mean, would a good DLC drive you back, or do you feel maybe a little bit like Shadow of the Erd Tree for some people, where they're like, I'm good with this?
Yeah, I kind of feel like that, because I also got the longer ending, the fleshed out ending. It felt really good as a conclusion. And frankly, I got enough of the gameplay. I loved it, but it's not a gameplay that I would want to do for another 20 hours. If that makes sense. Right. Because I felt like I experienced a lot of the different classes, and I kind of felt like, I'm good.
Yeah. What about you, Silver? Anything for that?
Well, I would really like a Bitter Black Isle type of DLC.
Like a new dungeon area.
Yeah, like where it's basically dungeon crawling. It's not really
something that they were missing from Dragon's Dogma 2. Yeah, for sure.
Where it's not really about the moving around the landscape. It's about descending level by level by level, deeper and deeper, deeper into this.
Yeah, I could see that.
Really scary dungeon, and with harder and harder fights, and with some enemies being really, really intimidating. That could be really, really cool. That being said, I'm also happy with what I got, and I still go back and play Dragon's Dogma 2 from time to time, and I have no doubt that I will continue to do that regardless of whether there's a DLC for it. But yeah, I would really like to see some type of Bitter Black Isles in the vein of Bitter Black Isle.
Do you know what I feel this might have done, Silver? It might be, the trinity of, like we talk about, your gameplay mechanics, your atmosphere, your story. This one's missing story. So it's just a collapsed pyramid fell on its side. But it's a great side. It's amazing. But I think that without story that's even notably interesting or notably noteworthy, as in there's names or things I did. Yeah. Some quests were pretty cool, but it was the organic experience for me that hit the most. I'm wondering if the lack of that is what caused me to feel like I'm done. And the reason why I bring that up is because with Dragon's Dogma 1, I did want to return for two reasons. One, it wasn't as fleshed out and fixed up as 2. I know that you have issues with 2, and so do I, in some of the class handling. But what I'm saying is 1 had some noticeable idiosyncrasies that were then not repaired, but were touched up a little bit in the DLC. But also, its performance, it was sub HD, it was sub 30 on the original game, and it was so unique that I just kept going back to it because I didn't have another experience like it. And here with Dragon's Dogma 2, I'm like, I also didn't have another experience like it, but there's no story there. There's no characters. There's just not anybody. And I've talked about this. Dragon's Dogma 1 wasn't a great story, but it was new. And I think that might be why, was that it was new. And now that I've got my second one, and it's sort of the same thing, not in a bad way, but same thing, got a great N+ game. Everybody should experience it. But it's not calling me back, man. It's not at all. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just, maybe I played too much. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean, maybe I played so much that I feel like there's nothing there. And I did do a lot of scrape exploring. I did a lot of walking back and forth because I love that, you're exploring section. Did you like the original location better? Because I feel like there were parts in 1 that didn't get matched by 2.
Yeah, I do kind of, because I think I mentioned this back when we talked about it, but one thing that really bothered me about 2 with its landscapes was it felt very claustrophobic to me. There was a genuine lack to me of large open space. Like in Dragon's Dogma, there wasn't a lot of that in Dragon's Dogma 1 either, but there were a couple of places
around
where
Grand
there was
Soren.
like, well, really like to the west of Grand Soren. I think there was large like
the
large,
cliffs
like,
near the
valley.
ocean and the valley.
That was basically completely open where there were a couple of like cyclops and some goblins and
some
stuff.
Great battles in
around.
that location.
And you had like a ballista you could fire really far because there was some decent distance and a decently open landscape there.
Mm-hmm.
That at least offered some variety. There isn't any of that in Dragon's Dogma 2. It's all these sort of corridor by corridor connecting to different areas. And it felt in that way, it felt quite similar to like Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain to me, where it kind of feels like it's these corridors connecting to these different kind of hubs that are almost levels.
Spot to spot to spot. Yeah. Like a hidden level with no loading, but it's still a level.
Yeah, kind of.
I get you.
And that got tiresome to me. Like, it really started to feel claustrophobic, even though it shouldn't. It's a large open world, but it just started to feel constrictive.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I didn't notice it as much, but that's because, well, I didn't notice it as much. It definitely is a thing. I would just say with especially what you're talking about. There were these large, like, and this is back in the 360 days, so I don't even remember if they had grass on them, but a green texture. And I remember the ocean was out there, and you would run out there, and there'd be a cyclops. And I remember coming out to this, and it was a long run, which I don't remember many long runs in DD2. And in DD1, there was this long run, and there were the rocks out there, and I, at that time, didn't know that they were a cyclops. That they were, they're cyclops, right? The guy made of stone. And I ran up to him, and he comes out of the ground, and I was like, what the f is going on? Like, it was that moment, that really, like, unique moment. Right. Admittedly, 2's got a ton of that. It's got some great stuff. But, yeah, so we'll just have to see. I don't know. I'm a little flummoxed because I want to return to it, if that makes sense. Because I think that is one of the most enjoyable games this year by far. And yet, I guess I just need to see their DLC. Maybe if their DLC is some idea that we think. Johnny, you said you sort of feel the same way as me. What would a DLC? So Silver's not saying he only wants that, but he liked the original DLC for 1, which is more of a dungeon. Is that what you want, or would you want a new class and a new, like, what?
I think I would want a new class, to be honest.
Class completely.
Something to be excited about. Yeah, I don't know if the dungeon crawling aspect attracts me as much as the open areas. I like the open areas, but I appreciate the idea of kind of like, getting deeper and deeper. That's a cool concept, almost like a tower climb, but the inverse of that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I do like
almost
that
like
idea.
Darkest Dungeon.
Yeah. I think something different. That is always a good question. How do we attract people back into the game with a DLC? You kind of need something interesting, not just more of the same. So, for example, Horizon, they had a whole new location with a kind of a different theme and stuff, which was cool. So, yeah, I think something like that, maybe a different mode too. So, whether it's a boss rush or wave-based defense, maybe, this type of stuff where it kind of like shakes the box a bit. Or it doesn't feel like exactly the same gameplay.
Yeah. Very happy with what we got. But, just, again, little like Baldur's Gate, if there were to be DLC for that, I would have a difficult time wanting to return back. And that's...
But I love being in this position.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to say, we are in a great position, which is we are the consumer, and we're in a position of... we get to choose if we buy this DLC or not, if we put our time into it. And it's up to them to think of something cool and creative
that makes you want to come
put out
back.
To try to like seduce us
versus
back
just
in,
having
right?
time available and there's some DLC that's been available.
Yeah,
now
exactly. Yeah. So I like looking at it like that, where it's like, I'm open to it. I'm curious to what they do. I don't need to solve that problem. It's kind of like their puzzle to solve in a way. And I'm just, receptive to what comes.
Let's see. talking to people about that. I'm waiting on my UFC 5 refund so I can buy Dragon's Dogma 2 instead. Played the demo. Fire. I would like the DLC as more of a fix to the issues. Eternal's still talking about GTA. He says, my biggest gripe with GTA Online is most activities besides buying property are in minigames. Ava says still planning or contemplating buying DD2. Doom says, I imagine DD2 does a large expansion like the first one. Well, there wasn't a large one in the first. I mean, that wasn't large. That was a. Was there another DLC for?
No, but I do think Dragon's Dark Arisen was pretty like Bitter Black Isle was pretty decently sized.
I've never thought of that as large as much as, like. I was gonna say deep, but I mean, if you were talking volume, it's sort of the same thing. But I guess it's such a small area that you go to. But I can see that. I can see that. I guess I didn't think about it.
I mean, the dungeon was fairly large, and there was a bunch of new enemies.
That was the one thing that game did well with the DLC was new enemies, right? That would be something that would be cool. Do you know what I want them to do? Lie to me. Be like, hey, guess what, guys? DD2, once you beat it, new bad guys show up, and you know, a new invasion happens from a different continent, and now there's brand new enemies everywhere. And I would be all for that. I don't need the same shit. If you buy the DLC, this invasion happens. Now there's new bad guys everywhere and a new place to go with a new class, because that's where you go to get your new class and learn new things. And instead of having cat people, you have dog people, or bird people, or lizard people, or slug people.
I'll never forget that the one room in Bitter Black Isle that has like 2 gore cyclops, and like gore cyclops are like the largest enemy
in the
entire game.
Yeah,
like they're humongous. They're kind of almost the size of like the massive giant that, or like Colossus, whatever, that appears in the climactic scene in Dragon's Dogma 2.
Is it Colossus or Colossi? The plural.
Colossi is the plural.
Is the plural? Okay, yeah.
Colossus is singular. But like they're huge, and there's a single room in Bitter Black Isle where you get 2 of them, and it's just complete. Like that fight is just complete chaos of trying to just get a handle of seeing anything, just having any idea of what is going on. Like it's just crazy.
Yeah, and I also like it because it's not like Elden Ring. You know, it's a completely different feel for fighting those big guys.
Yes.
It just. Yep. And 100%. I have nothing against Elden Ring. Obviously, I love Elden Ring. But there's something about Dragon's Dogma that just feels so different, but you can still face the same style of guys in the same style of way, but it feels different. And they offer some different tangible feel to them that it's awesome if you have them both and you like both.
Also because they don't lock you out, so that even if when you're in that large room, you do have a safety measure in that they can't follow you into like the narrow doorway.
Right, you just run away.
Yeah. So you can run in there and sort of recover, and then go back in. So that adaptability, I think, also really works.
Let's see. Some people are saying they would want it to be a new large area to explore. Nothing like exploring a new area in RPGs. I think I'm on your side on that. I think I would love to see a new area, but a dungeon in that area would be fine as well. Or what if it's like, you know, the Mines of Moria, they dug too deep. There's another continent somewhere, the race there dug too deep. The enemies come out, they affect the world. There's a new place to explore and a dungeon in that place. That's the best of all 3 worlds. And all of us get happy and get what we want. But yeah. Has the performance gotten better in Dragon's Dogma? I'm sure you mean 2. Unfortunately, it's stepped up a bit, but it is still quite harsh on PCs, even if you have a brand new one. Dragon's Dogma's main enemy is performance. Its main enemy is the number 60. It's like it can 40 and 50 it's friends with, but that main enemy 60, he's a major boss. What were you going to say?
No, like the towns are the biggest enemy. Stay away from the townspeople.
Yeah, you go in there and you're like, whoa. And you know what's funny, guys? Performance matters. It impacts everything. Plot, everything, because if it's stuttery. But I got to tell you, that's the positive to my negative of having no story that I talked about earlier. The positive is, didn't give a fuck what was going on in the city. So I was just like, all right, I'm buying some shit at 3 frames per second. I'm leaving. And the game was not impacted in enjoyment
pretty much.
To the point of like absolutely hating it. But rare, most of the time that would kill me. But maybe it helps that you go into that city and they're like, I have aught of use. I also have aught of use. I have aught of use. And you're just like, all right, whatever. You did the masquerade quest, probably wrong, like most of us did the first time, and then you moved on.
Yeah.
That masquerade quest. Man, I felt like I was living Groundhog's Day when everybody was in chat. When do you put on the mask? Because it wasn't really defined in how you did that. And
yeah, some of those things weren't explained too with the time of day. Like you come and just nothing is happening. And it's unclear. Oh, okay. Like I have to come slightly earlier or something.
Or there's a bench somewhere, and you like run to the bench, get ready to rest. You get ready to sit down. You rest. You wake up, and it's 1 hour prior to the time you need, and you're like,
yeah,
every time. Yeah, I know that feel. Let's see. Eternal says FromSoft really needs to prioritize an accessibility options tab in their next game. It's become the standard for AAA. It doesn't make games easier, but it does make them playable. An accessibility. What would you want to see in accessibility for Dark Souls? I feel like people who have accessibility issues are playing the shit out of Dark Souls or Elden Ring right now. Like there's a lot of people with accessibility controllers and stuff diving and doing quite well in that. The girl, I'm sorry, I don't know her name. I apologize because I've actually watched a lot of her videos, but I usually have them on an unsigned in. I can't remember her name, but she beat it with the
mind
ACG
control thing?
Or whatever mind control thing. Yeah, she's awesome, man. I think she's the one who beat 2 Elden Ring games at the same time with a foot pad and a controller.
That's a different person.
Is that a different person? Are you sure?
But that happened too.
Yeah, it happened too. We'll just say that.
It's pretty crazy.
2 people out there with insane skills that I'm jealous of.
I think there are 2 things there. One is that Elden Ring has a very cool and unique way of adaptability, I call it, instead of accessibility, which is kind of like adapting in a way, right? So you can say, well, listen, the challenge of like 1v1ing the boss is not fun for me. I feel like I need to be perfect and it's not fun. You can throw in a summon, right? You can throw in a co-op person that you call in. You can throw in magic into the mix to make it easier. Different weapons. There are some weapons that give you a dash instead of a roll with immunity frames too. So you have an additional mobility and evasive. So there's so many ways to adjust if you're having a really hard time that I think that's super cool. And that's maybe people don't talk about that when they're thinking, oh, I want an accessibility menu. I think from the accessibility side, maybe you couldn't have things like modulating the iframes, or how Star Wars Fallen Order.
Oh, Fallen Order.
Yeah, or I think Survivor did it too. Yeah, where you could actually dial in different things like the reaction, the reaction
gap
window
needed
for a
reactions.
dodge.
Yeah, that stuff is cool.
Exactly, like windows for different things. I like that you could dial that in. And you had some presets, you had the Jedi Master, I think it's the one that I tried, where that's a bit tighter and it felt pretty good. But you could really play with that. And maybe for you, the reaction speed is the thing.
Yeah,
and you can just touch that. I think that would be nice, but...
I just feel like the balancing for that must be...
It is tough, yeah. Because in a way, too, I don't know about you guys, but... those things are almost like they can remove the fun of a game pretty quickly too. It's kind of like when you played around with cheats in GTA or something and it's almost God mode all of a sudden.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Some of it, there is also some basic stuff. I think, like, I don't remember. Is there like text to speech in Elden Ring?
No,
right? Like that's
or colorblind mode, like some of those. Some of those things.
Yeah, those definitely should be in there.
I could get worked in.
Yeah, absolutely.
But certainly, I think one of the really cool things we've seen in accessibility lately has been like adjusting game speed. I think.
Interesting.
Like making the game slower or like faster or whatever. Like the ability to adjust that, I think, will be very beneficial to some people.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be cool if you had like a boss trainer
Oh,
So
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So you could go in and, maybe you can slow down the fight, or you can add some extra prompts to help you, like, dodge here. Okay, I'm thinking real time and it's going off the rails, but maybe some training aids for you to understand what an attack is. Like,
here's the easiest part, or the easiest, cheapest way to do that. The game starts up. Have you ever played a Dark Souls game before? Yes, no. If yes, would you consider yourself low, middle, high level? Yes, no. Do you want tutorials on or off? You want them to pop up once or twice, or go away. And you can always see them in the menu. Most games do that now, but every game needs to make sure their fucking tutorials are in the menu, right? You go to your menu, you go into your inventory, HUD, whatever, and you see one of the options is tutorials, and you can go back and see them at any time. I would like to see that purely because there are a lot of people who are new and they just can't figure out, because they don't play. Elden Ring certainly doesn't play. It still plays differently, but I would still say if you do a Dark Souls and then you do Elden Ring's closer to the generic game than Dark Souls is, because that first person you see in, Dark Souls 3 or whatever, you're just like, what the fuck? Oh, God. And if you're new to it, you might just be completely surprised with nowhere to go, no horse to get on, that kind of stuff. I would like to see it. Yeah. I think it'd be cool. I don't have an issue with them not doing hard. I have no issue with them putting hard, medium, and easy in there, but I also completely back them saying, nah, like this is our mode. But I do think that there's a difference between a hard game and one that is almost incomprehensible at first in its differences. And maybe just giving people a little bit of a snippet. And of course the accessibility, like you guys said, that should just be in there, because the more you sell, Elden Ring is already meant to be generalized versus Dark Souls, right? That's all. Right. That's their entire point.
Yeah.
So it's just like, if you have more people playing it, then your sample set of people who have color blindness is going to be bigger. That's life. Get with the fucking picture. Agree. If you don't want to do hard, easy, that's fine, man. That's your thing. But if you want people to at least be able to experience it without a hazard, you can't fix everything, but a color blindness, I thought that was in there. If it's not, I apologize. I should have pointed that out in a review. I normally would point that out, but I probably was trying to figure out if I could get through that thing, and that should be in there. Color blindness. I like the audio ones we're getting lately. We're getting a lot of audio ones in some of these games, and then of course Sony and Microsoft, particular titles from each one of them have been really good, and they've really jumped forward. I don't know if every company can jump that far forward, but I definitely like seeing them. Zelator says the upgrading of the weapons and the different styles and the different tempering is way more confusing than how to play this stupid game. Yeah, that is true. Inventory systems in games. I went into Division 1 after playing Division 2 for months. I go into Division 1, I'm like, what? And it should be pretty easy because, there's some DNA there. And of course, you're going backwards in time. But I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I hit this to do what now? And why is this a little bit more in some of those games?
I agree. I think also there is a big lack of the ability to figure out stuff without Googling in the game. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to figure out, like, what talismans I should wear to take less damage, like, sure, you can look at what you got so far, but if you really want to, you kind of have to look stuff up on Google. Like, the game doesn't do the best job at letting you know, like, hey, there is a lightning mitigation talisman that you haven't picked up yet that would really help you. Yeah.
Boy, it's a fine line, though, right? A fine line of discovery being the big deal. And that's where AI and shit will help developers by helping them identify, where you show, here's your game, here's your HUD, and the AI, everybody looks at it, they're accustomed to the game. Just like when you go over somebody's house and they're accustomed to interacting and you're not, and you listen to them and you're like, do these guys all hate each other? And you realize, no, they just jive off. You need these newcomers coming into games. I would love to see AI look at a HUD and say, hey, you know what? You haven't mentioned this in like 4 hours of your game. Maybe there's a blur, maybe there's this gap there, a little bit of a blurb. But I don't want to focus too hard on that, because then the experience that people love about it that I don't like, which is the lore and how you get it in that game, it would stomp on it. Just because I don't love it, I don't and I'll tease it to no end. I don't want them changing it for me. Like, if that's their plan, let
maybe
them do
a
it.
good compromise is giving you some specific tips to the boss in the loading screen. So if you just died, you know, as it's loading, maybe it gives you a specific tip to that boss, like, hey, this guy does a lot of lightning damage. Maybe consider equipping some lightning defense. You know, like, hey, if you're on a heavy roll, keep in mind that this guy has some really tight attacks. You might
if
want
you're
to
fat
consider
rolling all the
lighter.
time, maybe
rolling.
lose some weight. Like,
Lose some weight. Yeah,
because I fat rolled a lot
lean.
my first playthrough, man.
Oh, dude,
I was a fat
terrible.
roller. Yeah, I was obese as shit in that game. I had everything on me I could possibly have.
You're just like
That first time you
yourself at the
roll,
floor.
that's what I said in the review. It's like I mean, the world's worst quarterback trying to tackle somebody, where they're just like, "Mwah," and they roll slow, and you're all whoa, and then you see somebody without armor and how fast they roll, and
they go far too because the distance of the roll itself.
It's
is
great.
long.
It's great stuff. It's great stuff, and it's also, I think your idea is good because a lot of I mean, the idea of, let's say, if you go up against a boss and you get one shot twice, some people are going to be like, I don't even know how to learn from this because I'm dying.
And that goes back to the ability to parse stuff that I think you were talking about. Like,
it's huge.
It's not always easy to know because you just get one shot or two shot by something, and you're unsure is that magic.
Especially if you aren't used to that.
Yeah, and you might be like, is that magic damage? Is that lightning damage? Like some stuff. The line between fire and lightning is hard to tell.
Oh, dude,
like some of these dragons.
It's so funny you mentioned that too. Even just the element itself, because lightning burns technically.
Yeah, and they have yellow fire sometimes.
Yeah, so in any game, I've always found those two very closely aligned, like lightning and fire. And to me, they're slightly interchangeable, except lightning in most games doesn't propagate and stick.
And they are a bit more like archy. Right, you kind of visually see it more.
Reminds me that in like Avatar: The Last Airbender,
the game or the show?
The show.
Okay, go ahead.
Like firebending leads to lightning.
Oh, does it? Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
I mean, there is that sort of like connection there. So, would like an option to have patches sticking with you as a summon that gives nonstop bad advice trying to get you killed. That would be amazing.
That would be funny.
Fantastical says a training section where you can train different boss phases could be cool. I want to say I personally don't agree with I know why people would want the boss train, but I think that would remove. I would just like a training dummy that you can tell it like a fighting game, attack me, swing overhead, and then I can time that because I don't think I want to see the boss too much. That could
remove some of the magic.
That could remove a little bit of the magic of saying I am ready, and the game being like, no, you ain't. You know, I sort of
I get that because it does demystify the boss, right? When you're breaking down stuff like that or deconstructing what they're doing.
Or what if you miss? How about this, dude? I just think this is a good idea, and I'm gonna say it, and everybody's gonna be like, "That's literally stupid." But what if some bosses, as we know in some games, respawn? What if the more you defeat them, the more something you get, and when you get a certain something, then they're available in the training. So like
you unlock them.
They're unlockable, and now you can test them out and you can try different things because you've defeated them enough. You probably know the basic way of defeating them, but you're like, you know what I'd like to do on this guy that I beat 10 times? I'd like to defeat him with a no armor build, but I don't want to travel through this area. So you get a reward for doing something, and you have to get it a couple times. It's a different style of training. It's actually on your experienced side.
Yeah. I think Sekiro added that mode, the ability to replay boss fights.
Yeah.
Past
boss rush
fights.
style modes, yeah.
Almost, yeah. And I thought that was cool because, you had the ability to try different stuff. But I love the dummy. You know, Lies of P had a really good practical dummy. You had one that attacks you, one that doesn't. So keep it simple.
Yeah, so you can at least see your timing for like,
you could practice the parrying. You could try different stuff. You could try a different weapon. So you could say, well, how does this weapon work? How does this attack? You know, it's good.
Here's a game that did that really, really well was Sifu.
You mean in training the player on what was?
Yeah.
Sifu was awesome in that way. Sifu was very well done. Just not across the board. There were some issues, but I think Sifu did a good job training people, making you understand what was going on. Real quick, I want to read this. Onanumaru, pretty close, probably way off, but he says better descriptions too. List actual percentages instead of greatly increases defense. So I agree with the frustration of that. But I don't know if I want to see an option because I feel I would get stuck in analysis paralysis like Division, where it's 1% here, +1 down, +2 here, and you're like, what? But if it says greatly increases defense, then I can go like, what does that mean? And I don't,
I like
does 2 greatly increases defense on the same chest plate? Does that greatly is it always exactly the same? Does it actually mean +15? If it is, maybe you just do the percentage. But if it's not, I sort of like the idea of like.
And actually, the game does both for you, because if you're a numbers guy and you want to look at the numbers,
can't you hit
put
the
on
button
the talisman.
Anyway?
You can go into status and you can see exactly what your damage negation is for the different types.
That's what I remember.
And you see that increasing with talismans you put on, with this kabdu, whatever you call them, beads you pick up in the DLC. You see that go up. And I personally like the simplicity. Like, this greatly increases your HP. Then there's a bigger talisman that increases
vastly.
by the utmost.
Or
vastly.
Right.
And it's just like, +1, +2, +3
category. It holds the narrative, at least.
Keep it simple.
It holds the lore heavy, like.
And even the shapes of the talismans are representative of if it's a +2 or a +3. So.
Let's see. Would like the read that. That'd be good. Blah blah blah. There's a murder video game. It's just simple. Okay, people are just talking continually about that. Yeah. So those are some good examples from us. We're telling developers every day how to do their job. But I'm just joking. Jay Reaper says, "What's your guys' favorite burger?" This is Discord. Jay Reaper. I would say the Wendy's triple bacon.
We don't have Wendy's here. I've heard really good things about Wendy's.
We don't have In-N-Out either.
Yeah, we don't have In-N-Out.
You're missing nothing with In-N-Out. I'm just joking. I'm just trying to piss people off.
Funny enough, I like the double bacon Burger King burger.
Oh, I think we talked about this, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I also ate it sometimes growing up. I think I mentioned this is kind of a nostalgia thing. I ate it growing up sometimes with my mom and dad, but it was a very occasional thing, so it felt like a treat.
Yeah, right.
So now I look back at it like, oh, this is a nice treat. But to be honest with you, like, making a simple burger at home kind of beats most of the, because you can do it exactly how you like it. You can buy a nice burger, and oftentimes it's just nicer, I find.
And me, I don't agree in any way in that. I don't like homemade stuff for the most part. I don't know why. Never tastes as whatever to me. Probably not enough salt. Who knows? I don't know what it is. But,
that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good way.
I do a ton of burgers at home, and I never, no matter how, I've had people say I make the best burger and I taste it. I'm like, not really. Sorry, dude. If that's your best, keep it to yourself. Like, never go outside again. I'm just joking. I do think that a good burger can't be messy, though. I'm not one of those guys, Carl's Jr., the videos where like a supermodel's eating and shits in their face. Fuck that. I want a burger that has enough stuff to stay.
You mentioned that because I saw the nastiest burger someone posted, and I asked him, how do you even eat that? Because it doesn't physically fit. And they said, no, you eat it with a fork and knife because it's messy and nasty.
They're not in my Discord, are they? Because they're out. That fucker's bad. You don't eat it with a fork and knife. I'm just joking.
It took me a moment to process that, because the idea of eating a burger with a fork and it's almost like eating a pizza with fork and knife. I know some people do,
but it feels weird to you. It's more about the process of food that doesn't require cutlery. Yeah,
I don't want it ultra messy like that.
The mess is a huge reason why I hate mayonnaise as much as I do.
Oh, I can see that. It's slick and
I think it's the amount too, Silver.
Because here, they slather it on every type of sandwich, and they often slather so much on it that it disintegrates the bread, so the bread gets really mushy and soaked.
That's why I like making it.
Hang on, Johnny. Go ahead. Continue.
Which makes it really disgusting.
When it comes to mayonnaise, you're talking about when you go to restaurants, Silver, When you go to the restaurant,
Yeah.
they're putting too much on?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
But yeah, too much is gross. Go ahead, Johnny. What were you saying?
No, I was just gonna say that's why I like making it at home, because
You choose.
I can
Yeah.
limit, I can put a little bit of sauce to the amount I like. I can put the bacon, whatever, the way I like it.
Yeah, I smash the shit out of mine almost all the time, even if it really doesn't. I like it. I don't know, like a pizza almost. So I'll hammer
like
it.
pressing
Oh
it?
yeah. I haven't had a hamburger not pressed in years. Like I like it. It's easier to eat, and usually if there is stuff that comes out, you can wipe it. And you
it's
don't have to worry about it.
compacted.
With a beard, you got to be careful because that's gross.
Yeah.
I think it's disgusting.
The hygiene.
If I could
yeah.
shave my beard and it would grow back right after a meal, I would every time, because I just find beards. Yeah, it's tough. It's just basically facial pubic hair, and also you're taking in food, and it's just disgusting to me. So I want to be pretty careful with it. But even prior to having a beard, I was very careful with burgers. There's something about them that you eat, and if you have too much, it can splash. It's just like it's a messy,
and it's
a messy
like
meal.
falling onto your.
But good burger is phenomenal when you can have one.
I'm very simple when it comes to burgers. Just basically the beef, lettuce, tomato, bacon, and some type of sauce.
What?
No
No
cheese?
cheese?
Don't you?
Generally not. Sometimes I will use cheese, but generally not.
I'll put some cheese in that motherfucker. Like.
Yeah, something about cheese is a thing for me. When on meat and cheese go together for me.
Meat and cheese.
Because I think meat, even the best done meats, are still meaty, and there's something to them that when you add the creaminess of the cheese, it helps.
Oh, yeah.
It just helps it.
And the melted cheese too, because I'll put it on top of the burger as it's
Nothing better
cooking.
than burning the shit out of
And
the
it
upper
will,
part of your mouth with a hot molten piece of cheese and a hamburger.
Fantastic.
Though you throw it in there and it slides in, sticks on top of your roof.
I will add
mouth.
Pickles also from time to time.
I do occasionally, but pickles you got to
I'm not
make
a big
sure.
pickle guy,
Like to
personally.
me, I definitely have to make sure it's the right kind of burger. I do like, dude. Tomatoes have been replaced by ketchup with a lot of people, and I don't have any issue with ketchup. I use it on a bunch of stuff, but to me, a tomato is not. They're not the same thing to me. Like ketchup is the mayonnaise, the sugary mayonnaise family, and tomatoes are the vegetable or fruit family, and they belong with the onions, which I love, crisp white onions. So to me, I don't usually like to have ketchup and tomato at the same time. I don't know why. They're not super. They don't really work together, but I do love a
Also,
good,
I don't think a lot of people
ketchup,
realize, but a lot of ketchup
tomato.
is actually mainly made from apples.
Oh, to get that like
tomato.
acidic
even though,
sugar.
even though it's branded as tomato,
Yeah.
much of it is actually apple.
Yeah,
this is making me so hungry, though,
dude,
'cause
I'm fucking starved,
picturing
and I
the-
wasn't hungry today, man. In fact, I was looking at my weight loss plan, and I was like, okay, I've lost actually more than I need because I haven't eaten a bunch, and I'm like, today we're gonna be good. Oh, pickles are a necessity, but no onion or lettuce or tomato. Onion, I don't know, man. Lettuce is good if you have. Remember? Oh, you guys weren't in there, but we were talking about burritos one day, and one guy said I like lettuce on mine, and to me, without saying shredded, it meant a leaf of lettuce, and he had it in a burrito, and I'm like, the fuck, that's disgusting. But I did realize that I don't do shredded lettuce on hamburgers ever. I do like a leaf of lettuce,
right?
If it's not super lettucey, if it's not super thick, you don't get the white part, and you just have a piece of lettuce on there. But shredded lettuce, I love on burritos. Like that, I don't know. There's something about shredded lettuce. That texture completely changes. So
there are also different kinds. Like you can use iceberg, where you go with a leaf, or you can use like rucola, which is basically smaller leaves.
Yeah, I'm very. Here's green lettuce. Just go for it. I don't really mess around with that. And same with onions, white onions. I don't like other. Some people saute onions, and to me, that's just a worm that looks like an onion. I can't eat
right.
Whatever soft onions. I guess I need that hard.
Brunch.
Now it just sounds dirty. But what were we talking about? Oh yeah, that was Jay Reaper. Thank you, Jay Reaper, for the question from the patrons. Jay Reaper's been a patron for a long time. Absolutely appreciate it. Bubbles says, to add to the favorite burger, what's your favorite cuisine of all time? So you can say anything. What's your favorite? What is your favorite food of all time? Is there a favorite food? If there isn't, that's fine. But is there a favorite food you put above everything else?
You know, 10 years ago, like there would have been. But since then, I've been very fortunate in that I've been able to explore a lot of different like global cuisines. And really, it's gotten to the point now where I don't really have a favorite anymore. Like I can eat anything from like Chinese to Vietnamese to Indian to Japanese to Mexican, whatever. Like it's all I can find a deep appreciation for all of it.
Yeah, it's definitely changed with me as I've gotten older. What about you, Johnny?
I think if I had to pick one cuisine, cuisine, it would be Italian, probably.
Oh,
Yeah.
Even though
that is
it's
not what I
yeah,
expected.
Can't really go wrong.
No, you can't.
Yeah,
really.
I love Italian food, and really could be anything. It could be pasta, it could be lasagna, cannoli. You know, you name it.
To
Pizza,
me,
obviously,
I don't know
pizza's
about
good.
you, but I like lasagna where the top is like almost crusty, where
Mm.
they've done a good job like frying up that top,
Yeah,
and then the rest
grilling that top.
Man,
Yeah.
you snick in. I call it snick,
Really
but
get
it's
in
the
there.
sound of but if you're using a butter knife, the sound of it pop in the top. Is
Yeah.
like, and
Right.
you're all, oh yeah, that's at least for me.
But
I know
funny
some people
enough,
aren't fans of that.
It's also changed with age, because I'm now much more conscious of not like eating a shitload of carbs all the
Yeah,
time.
right.
And Italian food is basically carbs, right? It's just starches.
Yeah, it's the opposite of
So-
Atkins. You have basically
It is,
Atkins low
yeah.
carb and Italian, and that's your if you're an Italian diet, that is
Yeah.
just
So I
milking
try
the
to keep
carbs.
it under control.
Yeah.
But it is, if I just let myself, that's what I would eat.
And to me, it would be chocolate chip cookie dough blizzards from Dairy Queen. But I'm not
Mm.
doing carbs either. I haven't done carbs. in
Are
months.
those soft cookies or?
No, blizzards are soft
Crunchy.
serve dairy, basically ice cream, soft serve ice cream, and then they take chocolate chip cookie dough and whip it in there, so it's
Oh.
all the way through. So it's like a
Ah.
milkshake, but instead of being fully whipped, it's cucked. It's not fully whipped.
Oh, damn.
I don't know why my brain went there. Brock Shock said, in the last couple of years, what game do you guys think had the biggest potential, but just couldn't land it? Cyberpunk. I don't care if Cyberpunk did well now. Everybody who plays it knows it isn't what it was going to be. So I would say
True.
Cyberpunk lost the biggest potential, because if it's successful now, imagine where it would have been if it had done well. That's to me. That's my opinion, and I'm sure it's contentious.
I think I might say a game like Avengers or
Oh, true. Yeah.
or maybe Suicide Squad. Like because Avengers like kind of released during the height of
Of the
I think
Avengers movies.
like the MCU
Yeah.
popularity.
That's for sure.
like Endgame, all that stuff.
Mhm.
And it kind of I don't actually remember how it sold in terms of numbers, whether
Neither
it
do
did
I.
well enough or not. But certainly it disappointed press wise and publicity wise. So yeah, I think that one is the one that immediately pops up in my head as one that really squandered sort of the potential that it could have.
I think that's fair,
cashed in
because
on.
it was at that time, right? It was when the MCU had it.
Yeah.
It was maybe a little long in the tooth, but it was still in the prime, and there were still the bigger
Yeah.
movies and still the bigger heroes that were there, and it just, in a weird way, Silver, I do think Anthem didn't have as big of shoes to fill or chance, but I do think Anthem.
Anthem
there
is
was
definitely
a lot of
yes.
people like thought
Anthem is
was
another
gonna
one
be the
for
shit.
sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
That one really missed. What about you, Johnny? Is there a game that just missed?
I don't know about full misses. I think we had some half misses. Like Lords of the Fallen was pretty cool, but it kind of missed on some places
Yeah,
to be
especially
like
at
an
the starting
awesome
with performance and stuff.
Yeah. So that's what I would say. I think like Surge also had some awesome stuff, and then some other stuff kind of missed to make it a full like,
Do you know what's missed as an IP, guys, and fits into what Silver was saying, where you have a chance? I firmly believe that Survivor missed big time. Jedi Survivor.
Yeah.
I feel like that game really not that Star Wars is big right now. Star Wars is getting a lot of heat. Shows are hit and miss, mostly for me miss, but some people are hits. They have some issues. Movies for sure issues. It sort of doesn't know where it's going, but it's still Star Wars, man. It's still Star Wars, and Star Wars is a juggernaut whether they have 10 fucking failures or not, because it's Star Wars. It's already established. It's a thing. And so I would put that in. It's sort of in the Avengers idea. What do you think it was, though?
Can you put your... Yeah, like what do you think they actually...
Survivor didn't hit with... It didn't feel different enough. It really didn't. It didn't make some of the changes I think would have behooved that game, including like getting rid of some of the Dark Souls ideals. They stuck too close still. There wasn't as much customization as there could have been. The story wasn't...
I love the customization, though.
I did too, but there wasn't as much as there could have been. I still feel that game has a big potential to where you could feel... Well, and it could be just Cameron. It could maybe be my brain thinking I love Cameron as an actor, but maybe it should be a generic guy. But we won't go there because I think he's phenomenal. But I think, and then performance-wise, I just think it's Star Wars, and the fact that it's where it is...
Yeah, that was clearly a big miss. Like it's just the first impression was terrible with some of the technical stuff.
Yeah,
I think the story...
Is the main thing.
I don't know, like to me, the story didn't really...
Resonate?
No, the story...
It didn't really resonate, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Jedi Survivor a lot more than you guys, but the story, I think, is definitely the weakest point of the game.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too, by the way. Yeah, sorry, go for it.
No, that's all right. I was just did you guys like... So are you saying you like the story in Survivor more than Fallen Order? Is that what, like, as a general thought process?
No, I think I probably I thought Fallen Order probably was stronger overall. It felt a little more focused. Like I had fewer issues probably with the storyline in that one overall than I did with Survivor. I think a lot of the issues I ended up having with Survivor's story relate to a lot of the issues I have with what Star Wars is sort of becoming, where particularly with Jedi and Force users, where they're becoming superheroes that can basically almost fly, they can teleport, they can jump around, they can do all this superhero stuff. Where I miss old Star Wars, where the confrontation between Luke and Vader in Cloud City. They are flying around, jumping around all over the place.
Yes.
Using superpowers really much. Like it feels a lot more grounded. And I lose a sense of the stakes when suddenly a character like Marin is just teleporting around like Nightcrawler. It disconnects me from everything in the game.
Do you know what I lose, Silver? Without weight, momentum means almost nothing. Yeah. And when you saw Darth Vader swing, and remember, they were trained that they were supposed to be heavy back then.
Right.
And I get that they're not, but back then they were training as if they were European broadswords. And so the fights, even the stances, are still in the almost like Goju karate. There's a heavy stance. Luke, if you see the old pictures, Luke is in a full-on like semi-modified horse stance. I mean, you're just looking at him going, wow, that is some ancient shit. And then you get these new ones, which I love the idea of, and I love the idea they even say that the Force was stronger in some of the movies, the actual Force, so they're better, they're faster. But yeah, the chipmunk attacks of Yoda did nothing to me and did less to tell me the power of Yoda than his prior ability to, let's say, train somebody and ignore the bad stuff and be able to
pull up the X-Wing from the swamp.
Or pull up the X-Wing. That shit was epic. And it took him like 45 minutes. That's what it feels like. But you see him pull up the X-Wing, you're like, dude, seriously? It's awesome. But Jesus Christ, hurry up. And then and then prior in the prequels, he's fighting things off and admittedly age. We see the best movie stars, or sorry, not movie stars, but action or sports stars age, and so they're not as quick. But there was something about that didn't work.
And it's not isolated to Jedi Survivor. I mean, in Force Unleashed, you had Galen like pulling down a Star Destroyer from the sky, like that's using the Force, right?
Star Killer. Star Killer.
Yeah, Star Killer.
In what was it? Jedi. Yeah, Force Unleashed. Yeah, you said it.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. There's power creep in D&D games. You'll get your friend who's got that power
exactly.
Creep.
It's the power creep
in Star Wars is some legit shit where you're all, okay, come on, guys, or where you see, especially you'll definitely see this, for all the love I will give the Avengers movies at times for some of the fan service they do, and some of the little things they put in, those guys just change their powers from fight to fight. Like they're weak to one punch and not weak to the next because they just want to tell this momentary story. And you're like, what the fuck, man? It's so all over the place. But I'm just bringing up that one in particular because I do feel that they had Cameron incredible actor. They had other incredible actors playing different voices. That was really a star-studded cast. And it just is not, it doesn't get to where I wanted. And then with their lead leaving, I think it was Stig was his name, the lead of the Jedi Survivor team. I don't know where that's going now. I'm assuming we're getting another one. Maybe they've even announced it. I don't know, but I would love to see another one branch out a little bit. And, I'll leave that up to them to figure out how.
Yeah.
But
you know what's funny too? One of the main gameplay changes in Survivor was that you had a kind of like a great sword, but saber. So like a great saber. And it swung like it was heavier.
Yeah.
But it's
There's
light.
a positive. There's a
no, but
no, I like that.
It's just light though. It's not heavy.
It doesn't matter.
I mean? It's just a bigger saber.
Right, but that's why I like the old fights, because there was a momentum and a weight to things. And now with the way they show a lot of these battles, there isn't. And so, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it didn't feel good.
You didn't like it. So you're opposite. You like the chipmunk fights that we get in Star Wars now? You like the super fast, like, are you more of a fan of that? Versus, I mean, you're younger. You might, you grew up on the, like, more of the prequels than the originals, obviously. So it's fair that you would like those. There's nothing.
I think, in my head, just the fiction that it's a lightweight weapon because it's made of light.
And it is.
So it kind of makes me think that it should be quick and agile. But also it just didn't make sense that just because it's a longer shaft of light, it became heavier in my head.
Did they say the Kyber crystal weighed more?
No, that's not mentioned at all.
Because I would do that. No, it's I would just say these heavier lightsabers have the Kyber crystal above your focal. So if you're holding a stick, if it's below, twisting like this is easier because the weight helps your wrist. If it's above, it's actually harder. I'd just be like, yeah, crystal's up here, and it weighs a shit ton. Therefore,
I could buy into that.
Yeah,
if they said something
more to swing it. And also the Jedi don't do the one thing I'd do right away, which is, and we see it in some current fiction, but turning off the lightsaber and turning it back on during a fight, I know that's considered an evil
immediately
power.
Wins every fight.
As a kid, the first time I got it, I'd be like trying it on everything in the world. I mean, and weirdly enough, you see it, you don't see it, but you see how that would be used a little bit in the stabbing power, which is pretty rare. You don't see a lot of you see a lot of swings and stabs for death, but you don't see a lot of stabs to environment unless you see Qui-Gon or whatever his name is, Liam Neeson, in that one where he stabs it and he cuts a circle in the wall. I think that's the first one, right? Yeah. I like that. But you know what? Regardless, Survivor's a playable game.
Raises. I mean, you also get the question of why are you even like using a lightsaber when you can like hurl rocks everywhere and tear rocks?
That's what I'd be doing.
Tear pieces out of mountains. and whatever.
Yeah,
right?
it's true.
Do you know what most fantasy games, including D&D, don't do? Now some of them are getting great because this has been a complaint since Redbox D&D. But a lot of times when a character has a superpower or a power, they just use points. They're like, that person has less points, they can't cast that spell again.
Right.
But what they really need to do, and that's why the fatigue systems have come into it, is explain it as like just like mental power. You're drained, you're tired. We've all had it. You come home, you're not physically tired, but your brain is like, fuck you, I'm doing nothing right now. It doesn't matter what you throw at me. It doesn't matter if you drink caffeine, whatever. My brain is off. The brain is not working. And I like games that explain it that way, or TV shows in particular. Movies do a better job of explaining that. And with the Force, I've always wondered that too. I'm like, I wish there was a better feel. There's been a couple movies, and I believe Luke does it. There's one particular, I'll say this. When Vader cuts off his arm, you see Vader step back and like rest or reset. And I remember thinking to myself as a kid going, are they trying to show that that's psychically, like the power of that psychically damaged him? I've never looked up the fiction if that's what they were doing, or if he was finally done with this fight that was really hard, and he did that. But there was this moment that I liked. Yeah, anyway, good stuff. I like the idea. I love to see that stuff more explained. Robert says, ACG, I suggest you play Age of Wonders 4. I'm already playing Age of Wonders 4. I've got all of it. Wasn't Vader just slower after being damn near killed? That is how it's explained now. Darker, light is heavier, obviously. Oregon Fresh says, yeah, Yeah, that's what it is. Darker. It's just, it's darker light. It's heavier.
Makes
Neil
sense.
deGrasse Tyson would back that up. So would Terrence Howard. Have you guys seen that? Oh my God. Anyway.
Yeah.
Eternal says probably heavier suit to where Jedi tend to be clothed in lighter material. Yep. All of that stuff will explain it away, basically, because it is, in the end, not real. Silver Hawkins wrote, looks like there'll be more layoffs. So you saw this. You saw Tom Warren said this. They laid off some people.
Yeah.
It looks like not all games. There's a couple games, but there were also a lot of their Azure staff.
And some had apparently been told while they were on vacation, which is unfortunate.
How do you stop people from all taking? With 10,000 employees, somebody's always going to be on vacation. I guess you just
True,
and somebody's going to tell them if they get laid off. Like it feels like that's a Tom Warren reporting issue more than it is an actual issue. But it sucks no matter what. Yeah, that sucks.
It depends. It depends on whether that layoff was part of an overall one, or whether it was like one in the department, or whether they could have waited and informed her when she was back home, or whatever. But anyway, it looks like there are more layoffs coming to Xbox.
Yeah, and I just saw this is a port company. They're not a port company. There's a tech company that helps people on ports and working on games. They're like a support company. They don't really put their name in credits. It's a large Japanese company, and they are also reporting a ton of losses, ton of canceled games, and there's expectations we'll see some layoffs there as well. I would assume they're going to continue for, the layoffs will continue until morale improves. No, I'm just joking. But I'm sure we're going to see more of that kind of stuff for a while. Yeah, it sucks, man, especially now when... Oh, here we go. Co-development studio Tose, T-O-S-E, Tose, who knows where it's from, reports losses due to multiple canceled games. There are people worried that they might have a layoff as well. Yeah, it's definitely, it's not going to stop, man. And I don't know about the vacation thing, but I guess
it's also potential.
I guess it sucks no matter what. It just sucks.
Yeah, I think also just because, from my own personal experience, there's been moments where I've been told like, no, you go. Everything's just fine. Everything's just fine. Don't worry about anything. And then like 5 days later, no, there was reason to worry. Like
absolutely
being lied to in that way.
That happened to me. I missed my
shitty.
vacation right before I got laid off, and I still believe I knew something was up because the vacation got canceled because I got sick, and I saw people acting weird in my division. I was like, not people above me that were doing the cuts, the financial cuts, and I was like, that's odd. Like people, you get that sense, and I wasn't able to go anywhere, and I could tell they were disappointed I wasn't. Not because they were like, oh, he'll be here. It was more like, oh, that sucks. He's not going to take the vacation, and have a good time prior to going. But I got to tell you guys, I was really happy I didn't take the vacation because I had that money. They had to pay me out the vacation, which they were probably upset about because I had a lot of hours. But yeah, it sucks, man. Hopefully, I don't know who this is that they're talking about, but and it also shouldn't be about this one person. I don't know exactly why, if they know each other, but yeah, there was groups laid off. Dry Suro says, why are romance plot lines in games so important to people? So listen to this. This ties into what I wanted to talk to you guys about. So Obsidian is talking about Avowed. No sexual relationships in that game. And they said one of the major reasons is they didn't really want to impact the non-sexual ones. They wanted to have a friend group, I guess, or a group of heroes doing a thing. I personally, this is just me, I love it. I love that we're not always fucking. The same group of seven people who are saving the world aren't always banging. So to me personally, I'm super excited. But he is right. They're very important to people, obviously. Why do you guys think romance versus friendship is it an extension of people wanting?
I think it is a vicarious thing for a lot of people. Yeah, I think that's also one reason why you see virtual girlfriends being so popular, and why like the virtual dating simulators or whatever also can be quite popular. I think there definitely is a vicarious thing there.
Yeah, I think it is probably a little bit of that. What about you, Johnny? Why do you think... By the way, Johnny, I know that you have like personas as well as I have. And they do have relationships, and we both, banged people in Mass Effect games. So is Silver. I'm sure, unless he didn't do the sex game. I don't know, or not sex game. Jeez, it's not what I meant. I meant the relationship. Do you find them important, or would you notice if they were gone?
No, not really. I think it's fine. I prefer the camaraderie, like you were saying, especially if there isn't a space, like a space for it. Because like a romantic relationship takes so much space.
Yeah.
In the interpersonal
it's a good way
interactions
of
as well.
It's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like so you could have like 3 buddies, or like to have someone who's intimate, you would need to show a lot more interaction between, that one character.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay with it.
Funny, the way you described space made me think of 2 things. One, space to fuck, physically. But what the other thing you explained, when you said space, I thought of 2 people standing there and their globe of influence on the story getting bigger. So, like their actual... And the reason why is it has to get bigger to make the relationship even matter. Otherwise, you're just putting it in there to service something. And then what does that push out? So I like your idea of just space overall. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I hadn't thought of the physical space.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought of. I was like,
if it's
it's like in
trip,
Mass Effect when I'm on the ship and you're like, hey, let's go to my... I mean,
they're like banging in the car, and then the other
like
2
having
bros.
a roommate over, and he's like, I'm going to go into my room and read a book, and you're all, no, you're not. Like, we know what you're doing.
Yeah,
you're masturbating.
Yeah, but so you took exactly what I meant with that. It's like, okay, we need a lot of screen time all of a sudden with this character to justify the intimacy, and so that you can buy into it. Otherwise, it feels like, for example, Final Fantasy 15. They did a great job with the homies, but the romance with the lady, like there was nothing there. It was completely empty. Like you knew because they told you that they were, like they were a thing, they were going to marry or whatever, but there was no sense in which you experienced a romance in the story of that game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What were you going to say something, Silver, about this?
It just like, it never made sense for me. And to me, for like Shepard to like start romancing people because they were on a mission. So I often kept my Shepard like on mission.
Me too.
Because that was what made sense.
Yeah.
And like
you can't call me up and say
like...
big bad guy is waiting outside, and I say, hang on, I'm going to bang the blue chick. It made no sense, and I love those characters. I love Mass Effect.
Yeah.
But in that particular element, it breaks the
it's funny you say
of
that.
Time, I guess, or threat.
In my head, it was like every day could be the last, and they had this
bang.
very, they had that very, in the front of their minds that like, okay, we live a dangerous life, every day may be our last, so let's.
I think there's nothing wrong with what you're saying, and that makes sense.
No,
I would have liked to have seen them make
depends
it
on how you see
bang.
Shepard as a character.
Yeah, how you see Shepard. I just want it to be harder to bang. I am really bothered by the combo button bang that we have in relationships right now, and it needs to be cultivated. And then I would be fine with that. It's just the fact that it's ABBA.
Yeah, like the intimacy
choices
wasn't hard earned.
Also,
in a way.
Also, the fact that it always that sex is always like the reward or whatever.
True.
Like there are so few like in game romances that don't feature sex, even though romance can often not feature sex in real life. Like it's not necessarily. They're not necessarily bound together in that way. They can be, but they also aren't necessarily. Like
flirtation can be very powerful with no sex.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
you can be a huge driver in jobs. I'm sure everybody's worked with people where 2 people are flirting all the time, but they're not doing anything. But there's an energy there. There's a lot of really cool stuff you could do. Just don't go the way of whatever this last Yakuza was, because that dude needs to figure out what's going on. Because he's running around with that.
It's also, let's be honest,
bothers me.
It's not something games tend to handle all that well. Like I honestly don't think like most of romances in Mass Effect were really all that great. Like,
Nope.
I agree with the ease with which you jumped into them being a problem.
Do you know what
I definitely noticed.
would you guys rather have? I have no issue with, as a release, a sex robot in Cyberpunk. Other than that, it's the same for 3 million people. That's a little gross.
right.
But I had no issue with that versus trying to say this world and characters matter so much, but it's just ABBA. So I think there's a middle ground they can hit. But I would agree with you guys. They're not great. They're not great. You know, it's hard. By the way, when I say they're not great, I don't mean they're bad. The people are bad. I'm saying I bet relationships, to get that into a game and make it make sense.
Especially in games that are like open-ended in the way a lot of RPGs are.
Yeah.
Like if you look at like one relationship I think, or romance that I think was actually beautifully handled, was in Assassin's Creed Origins between Aya and Bayek, where they eventually actually break up by the end of the game. I felt that relationship was really beautifully handled.
What about Witcher 3? Did you like Yennefer and?
Yes, I actually did also really like the relationship between Geralt and Yennefer, where it is at times toxic, and at times it is also very affirming. Like it sort of alternates, and it feels very real because of that.
Yeah, I thought that one was great.
It's not just necessarily all lovey-dovey.
Yeah, true.
It gave when they were talking about Pan Am. Was that that was Pavardi as well in Outer Worlds.
Like one thing I really appreciate about the Geralt Yennefer relationship is that Yennefer has agency. That's one thing that really sort of, I think, falls apart for a lot of these video game romances, is that the partner in question often has no agency.
They're just waiting for
they always defer to you. They always defer to the player. Like that was a major issue for me in Mass Effect. Like, and none of the NPCs in that game could make decisions for themselves. They all constantly deferred to Shepard. Oh, Shepard, I can't make this life choice. Please make it for me.
Right.
That was something that really sort of killed a lot of the characters for me.
I would say, I would agree with that, man. Yeah, I would agree with that. There's definitely a thing where they're just waiting for you to do everything. They're just,
right.
Which Shepard's the main character, but he's only the main character. Unless you're Iron Man, you're not going to win when you're by yourself. So it makes sense that some people would wait around for you because you're the leader, but they don't have to wait around you for sex or what have you. Yeah, it would be interesting though if you're like talking to Ashley and you're like, "Let's bang," and she's like, "Nah, you missed your chance, sucker. You missed your chance. I'm no longer hot and bothered, man. I killed some people. It's the same thing. Same chemicals released. Sorry, we ain't gonna bang." And you're just sitting there.
That was actually one thing, because
Xbox blue balls on the X
that I did find somewhat amusing, because like the backlash against like Ashley or Caden because of them sort of turning against Shepard because of Shepard's sort of alliance with Cerberus. That was something I completely understood and I found believable.
Yeah.
But a lot of people really, really took significant issue with that. All of a sudden, these characters took a stand for themselves. That wasn't in line with Shepard's.
I'll be right back, guys. I have to take out.
But still made sense to their own internal logic.
I saw it.
He's going crazy.
Yeah, no worries. What's up, Foreign? Yeah, I think when you look at all these kind of things, I love the idea of the romance in the games, but it's pretty difficult, man. It really is.
For sure it is.
It wasn't handled great in Dragon Age Inquisition. BioWare maybe is just the predominant company that I think tries it a lot of times. I think Outer Worlds did a good job when one of the characters you probably thought was a sexual relationship for you turned out to like somebody else. I thought that was well done in Outer Worlds. Pavardi, right? Is that Pavardi or Pan Am? Pan Am's Cyberpunk. Pavardi. Yeah, she likes the one girl. She's all like nervous around her, and that was handled really well. And the thing that's interesting to me is you brought up people having control or lack of it. It's interesting in that one, the one character that was shy was able to do something with a different character, had no connection to you. And then you get like Ashley, let's say, or Miranda, these stand up, gung ho, I can take out these guys. They're the ones waiting around all the time. And then you have Yennefer, which I think Yennefer's worked because there was a history there, too.
Yeah.
They were able to
Also,
compress that
Yes.
prior experience down. But I think that one was handled well. I thought Witcher's, even when Witcher's was goofy and like, you know, sex unicorn.
Yeah, like the unicorn. Yeah.
It was. I think that was probably the best way to handle it because Witcher's already pretty.
Also,
dark
because
jokes.
it also came off as like an internal joke between them.
Yeah.
Like an internal thing that you would have in a relationship.
Yeah, and a lot of people like some weird shit. Let's see.
Yeah.
There was a huge backlash when they made Anders in Dragon Age 2 hit on the player. I don't even remember that. Do you? I don't even remember.
Yeah, there was. I mean, there was some homophobic stuff, I would say.
Oh, because
there was a contingent of players who didn't like getting hit on by Anders. Yeah, where if he had been a woman, they probably wouldn't have minded as much.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not. Regardless of the percentage, it's obviously not equal in how many people are represented.
No, yeah.
So I could see it feeling like it was a bunch, but I can't remember. I don't remember anything about Anders. I might not even have been on the net that much talking about games at the point when Dragon Age 2 came out, or in forums, and probably just skipped those forums. I don't remember that. I do remember that people wanted this in games a lot because it wasn't covered for a long time. There was a lot of those RPGs that were more about just grinding away and killing the bad guys, that kind of stuff. And then suddenly you have we're going to go home, and you're like, oh, I have a home base. What do I do at the home base? Build and bang.
I think Baldur's Gate 2 was the first one I remember.
And
doing
Baldur's
that.
Gate 2, was it a other player that you could do? I've played Baldur's Gate 2 so many times.
It was like Jaheira and Avery, I think you could do as well.
Sex
and Daconia.
or relation, was it alluded to? Or was it full on like
the sex was alluded to? Like there was basically just a very brief fade to black, and then you got an acknowledgement that it had happened or whatever, from what I remember.
What's the other game, Silver, where they have the fade? There's another huge game that does the same thing. It's like you go up, you talk to them, fade. Well, Starfield does it. You wait, dude. Starfield's just straight up broken in that effect. Every time I go back in, the character is busted up and their legs are over their head, and they're like, "Man, last night was a rough night. I don't know what the hell happened."
Yeah, Fallout does the same.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking is Fallout. Maybe that's exactly what I'm thinking is Fallout. I just can't, because you can bang a ghoul in Fallout, can't you? In Fallout 3,
yeah,
or is it Fallout New Vegas? One of them you can bang a ghoul, I think. I don't know if I would choose that choice, but hey. You can do it. Don't worry, you missed nothing. We were talking about.
I was listening in. Yeah, good.
Banging ghouls. Let's see. Here's a project. What are people talking about? Didn't even realize I was flirting. Didn't even realize I was flirting the guy in Dragon Age 2. Oh, maybe that they were flirting. Yeah, I can see that. Sometimes if a character comes on to you, sometimes in real life, man, I've been with friends and somebody's coming on to them pretty strong, and that person is oblivious, man. No clue. And they're like, no thought process about it, and then afterwards they'll be like, yeah, man, I sort of dug that girl, and I'm like, bro, you may have missed that boat, man, because you basically pretended as if you weren't interested at all. Oh, Kratos banging the two women in the first God of War, that I do remember some hubbub about that one, for sure, because he gets in hot springs with them. Isn't it God of War that he can get in the hot springs with two chicks with bare breasts? I thought that was God of War 1.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like I'm not wrong on that. I don't remember much of God of War other than smashing the shit out of people. Like,
yeah,
it was obviously, if it was a hot bang, it didn't matter too much. I think it was a QTE. Jay Reaper says a QTE. Hot. What was it? Hot coffee for GTA when they found the sex. The sex
mini games. Yeah.
We didn't mention Baldur's Gate 3, so we might as well. Baldur's Gate 3 tries to handle it pretty well. I thought it handled it okay, but I like to see those games try it, and I also love that some games don't. I think that's really fair to not have to go out.
It felt like the romances in Baldur's Gate 3 were like on the level of that type of game before. They weren't stellar, but they were. I mean,
but they were
what
there.
They were.
Yeah. There was a little bit of time passed. Certainly more than we would say Mass Effect, right? Like there was maybe Now I can't remember. Maybe there wasn't as much time passed as I think. I feel like you might have had to work a little harder for it in Baldur's Gate, but I didn't work for it.
I mean, it also depends on who you romance, because some characters have quite a few lines, right? and some barely have any dialogue.
Yeah.
Like if you go with like Minthara, you're not going to get a whole lot of scenes with her.
That's how I like my sex, no dialogue. And Anti-Sky and Johnny both want to talk a little bit about the Esports World Cup taking place in Saudi Arabia. So first of all, what is this, Johnny? And how many people? What is it about? And what is it? One game? Is it many game? Is it the Olympics of digital?
So I looked a little bit into this. It's not just one game; it's many games. So you have Call of Duty Warzone, League of Legends, Counter-Strike 2, a bunch of games I don't know. Rainbow Siege 6, Overwatch 2, Apex, Fortnite, StarCraft 2, Street Fighter. So there's so much. And each of them have a prize pool. So, for example, Call of Duty Warzone is 1 million. League of Legends is 1 million. Yeah, there's some 2, 3, 5. So it's kind of like this big event. And what's cool is it just involves so many different games, which I thought was nice. We have some of those already. I think like DreamHack, where you have a few esports put together in one event, which is cool. But it's interesting to see something like this, trying to recreate a little bit the football World Cup type thing. I think that's what they're going for.
Mm-hmm. Listen, I think it's awesome. I don't want anybody turning a game into a job unless they really want to. But the rewards, $1 million is more than many people will even really understand seeing, whether it be in life or it be at 10 years, whatever you're making. So that's a good amount of money. It's a good prize cup. Saudi Arabia is deep into the video gaming circuit now, so the idea of them rewarding people for some older games and newer games is also cool. So it's not all the new games and it's not all the old games. I did have issues in the past where every time we talked it'd be like Counter-Strike and you're like, dude, that's like from 50 years ago it feels like. So get some new ones in. But did they have a farming simulator, Johnny?
No, I didn't find it there.
Too bad. Get the farmers in there, man. I want to see those guys show up and do Farming Simulator. Real quick, foreign user, $5 super chat. Just want to say thanks. And I want to say thank you very much for the super chats. They help the channel, especially as we don't do sponsors. So
absolutely.
I don't know what more to say about the World Cup. I just think it's cool that it's being done.
Yeah, that's cool that it's there.
Eclectic group, right, of games. Feels like they sort of nailed it with this one. Is this the first? This must be the first. Is this the first of the? Must be. Like the first Saudi. Okay, cool. Well, I'm not good enough at any game to be a champion, but I wish I was. I don't know if I'd want to go to Saudi Arabia to play games, though. It's hot. It's already hot. The idea of going there is just like.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about the venue. Like I wasn't crazy about Qatar being a venue for the Football World Cup either.
Politically,
so,
you mean? Because of the politics. Yeah. I can see a lot of issues with that for sure. Master Paz says, now that ZZZ, a.k.a. surely a mobile game has come out, surely mobile game of the year, that's what he says. What's your favorite mobile games?
Maybe Wordle.
Dude,
these days.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, these days? These currently, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Damn. Okay. All right.
I don't know, man. Plants vs. Zombies. It's pretty good.
That's a good one. I mean, Game Dev Story is hard to top. That got me into mobile games. It was the first game I played on mobile, and I was like, I would never play that on my desktop, but on a mobile, it was fucking perfect. And then the Tress brothers do the Space Trader games, and those games are just fucking unbelievable. And I probably put more into those, so I'd probably say that. I do think we're getting a lot of ports that are pretty crazy, guys. XCOM is on Android devices, and probably iPad. I don't know. I don't own one anymore. But XCOM 2 is on. Yeah. Like that's some nuts stuff that you can do XCOM on a mobile device. And it's a perfect game too, because you can lock it at 30, sort of pick and choose where your graphics are. It's a good title for mobile. I don't do anything fast on mobile though. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
need, right? Like if I have to
No,
interact
yeah.
with the motion controls in a way that is time sensitive, I'm done.
Yeah.
That's not where I'm going for those. Oh, and Johnny says Concord open beta, July dates. So any change of thoughts on Concord? They've done some, we've seen a little bit of videos, we've seen some more stuff. Concord interest either one of you guys? The hero shooter from Sony? I guess we'll call it hero shooter.
Not really.
Not really. What about you, Johnny?
Not so far. No. I'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I think when you look at it,
open beta.
It's a hero game. It's paid, which I think I said last Friday. I could be wrong. We missed last Friday. No, we did last Friday. Could have been in this podcast. Could have just been me talking in my sleep. But I do believe a paid-for hero shooter
We
that
mentioned
delivers
it.
good. I'm sort of excited to see where that goes because they don't all need to be. Ooh, I might have went offline completely.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you're back for me now.
I'm back for you. Let me try again. Let me see if I come back. Let me see what's gonna happen here. Let me jump.
The chat says you're back as well.
Am I back?
Looks
Am I
like
back?
we're back.
I apologize, people. That was the internet just having a little bit of fun. That's one positive for the system that occurs now with OBS. It pops back instead of diving you into
it
something else.
reconnects.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, YouTube hung for you as well. Okay, so that was a YouTube thing. Weird. All right. Next up, I want to give out the code or whatever you need for Elden Ring's DLC. So, everybody answered goodly. It's not a word. I'm making it up. But I was trying to look here and see like if there was something that I wasn't expecting. And then I saw one that I did. It's not a long question or it's not a long answer, but I'm going to probably give this person. How about this? I'll read you guys 3 and we'll vote. Is that fair? Is that more fair? Okay. The first one, and one I like because of the game and what it means to me. So it's probably unfair. This is from Fake Pasta. He says, best map design for me is actually Talos Station from Prey because I found it as a believable lived-in place. He says Clockwork Mansion for Dishonored 2. That's a good level, but it's not a full thing. I actually think that's a great answer. And the idea that you discussed lived in is something that I love. I like that. The next one is, this is Jet's Sheen, and let's not diss on him for the game he chose. He says the best map design that stands out to me was Crossfire for Call of Duty 4. It's probably my first experience of the 3-lane design without realizing it. But here's why I think it was great. Allowed for long and short range combat. The middle lane was mostly clear of obstacles, and so it could be fun to watch for people trying to cross over lanes. The outside lanes were tight spaces and buildings, so submachine guns and shotguns worked well. I think you could take a loadout on this map and perform well. Lots of places to hide or take cover, which suits both a camping playstyle and a run and gun. Made a good choice for objective-based game modes as well as TDM. Plenty of buildings to fight over, and I think always more than one entrance to any one building. So my argue for it being the best is that it allowed players to engage with all the mechanics on offer in the game and still be able to have fun regardless. That's probably a better answer. That's a really good answer.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good. We'll stick with that. Jet Sheen, sorry to Fake Pasta. I like your answer, but even though it's Call of Duty,
it was a good argumentation.
Really,
like you can see what.
Yeah, I can see what one's saying, but Jet took his time to really explain everything, and I know that you're not all available to do so. And we'll be given another game at the end of the podcast as well. But all you have to do is contact me, and I will figure out what platform you're on. I'll get you a code, and we'll get you out there playing the DLC for Elden Ring.
So what's the best way for people to contact you? Twitter?
Yeah, because I can verify them on Twitter. Yeah, Twitter. Oh, cool. If you don't have Twitter, you could use... you can email me on my profile on YouTube, by the way, or on Twitter. By the way, I will be checking. So I've been giving it away. People have made like fake accounts.
It's me, KARAK.
It's me.
It's me.
Hey, KARAK, I won. And I'm like, using AI now to answer that. I think that's a good answer, though. Like explaining the first of the lane feeling that they had. I think that's cool because we've all probably maybe played it and not known that it's like sort of a 3-lane. But the idea that it's like cumbersome on the right and left, but that's where the cover is. Center's faster. Being able to pick people off and not just run through the center. That's a good choice.
That's in fact something that I might have experienced, but wouldn't know to dissect it like that.
Right. You know? That's why I think that's a good answer.
Yeah, it was thoughtful. It's good.
Very good, man. See, you guys, I mean, people say it all the time. You know, ACG's fans ain't that smart, but I think you just proved that they are. So I'm just saying, fight anybody. I'm just joking. Nobody's ever said that, at least that I know of. Next up, let's try to move this forward. Last one, Sojourner says, if you could introduce any dead historical figure to a video game, not from Johnny. Or I said I'm not from Johnny. I meant to say I'm not from the South, but I read you say Keck. And I said Johnny. Yeah. If you could introduce any dead historical figure to a video game, who would you choose and what game would you pick to show them? I'm trying not to go with Age of Empires or Civilization. Because I think that that's like a cheat that I would instantly have used for the answer. What is a game and a historical...
Forget his name. Just look it up. Thomas Cochrane is one.
Thomas Cochrane? Wait a minute. Is Thomas Cochrane who I'm thinking about? Nah, I can't be thinking about who you're thinking about.
Who is that, Silver?
He's Parliament, right?
No, he was like a Scottish ship captain who like started
10th Earl of Dun
in a bunch of liberal revolutions in South America.
Yeah, that is
really legendary figure.
I'm doing a historical class right now, and they're talking about him. Cool. I haven't got to that part. Oh, okay, awesome. How would you? So he's done all this stuff. What game would you put him into?
Like a ship combat game.
Ship combat game. But let's say you have
kind of Master and Commander type deal. Yeah,
that would be cool. That would
naval
be cool.
combat. Ships of the line and stuff. Yeah,
like a true, almost like the one game you like, the Silent Hunter, but for like old style broadsides, like that kind of.
Yeah,
sim?
kind of.
That'd be fun. Damn. Yeah, that's a good one. What about you, Johnny? Do you have any historical figures?
I think whoever was the person behind the Jetsons, the cartoon I used to watch as a kid. They had a lot of like futuristic things in the cartoon that they thought were gonna come to pass, and I would.
Oh, dude, yeah, they did, man. Yeah,
I would have them play a game like maybe like Detroit Become Human, where it shows more, a version of
their
world
future
today, but with some future things in it, like the androids and stuff.
Jetsons was awesome, man.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Johnny. I always thought of the Jetsons as the Flintstones in the future. I don't know why.
They were.
Were they supposed to exact be that?
Yeah, there was even a crossover.
Okay, I remember the crossover, but I thought it was it was Quark or whatever. Who's the dude with the big dome in Flintstones who always is fucking with Fred? Yeah. I always thought it was just that, and it was like another. But dude, yeah, they're so alike, and so, of course that's a honeymooners anyway. But I love the idea of that kind of stuff. Yeah, Flintstones was the shit, man. Flintstones was awesome. So like a Detroit Become Human, but
Jetson was considerably less abusive than Fred, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, it wasn't even. Dude, Fred was a dick to everybody. By the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
When it comes to like who I'd like to see, I would love to play a game that was Charlie Chaplin, and you were doing stunts. And you were like, I don't know how you would do it, but I would love to see the physicality of those old stuntmen. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. And I don't know if you guys have, I'm sure you have, but some of his stunts, like, they're never passed today, right? Illegal as fuck. You'd kill somebody today. He was the Jackie Chan of his time. Souls Keeper 60L Super Chat, gents, has been a while in the spirit of Summer Games Done Quick 2024. What is the speed run that has completely blown you away? Cheers. What is the speed run? Good question. What's the speed run that's completely
blindfolded speed run of Punch-Out?
Oh, going by sound only? That would be pretty impressive.
Not just even, barely even sound only. Like just a sense of the timing of when you press the buttons, almost like innately. Like just insane. Yeah.
Speedrunning to me is a art I don't understand too much because there's a lot of glitches, and I always like to look for the no glitch speedruns.
Yep.
So I would still say the Mario ones, Mario 64, which is weird because it's such a base game, but there's so much to it by the very intrinsic way Nintendo made it that is almost magical, even if you don't like Mario 64, which I like it, but I'm nowhere near the love that a lot of people have for it. But even I look at that and go, that's special. You can't do that in a lot of open world 3D games. Like the shit that is going on in Mario and the flexibility that character has grown into glitch runs, no glitch runs, speed runs with this, speed runs with that, and you see it and you're like, holy shit, it's almost like it's its own genre of games just for Mario. Yeah, impressive. I can't do it. I can't even. I had a hard time beating Mario 64 by myself without a speed run, let alone.
Heck, I mean, do you remember the first time in even like in a Mario game where you encountered the warp level, like being able to like warp to ahead in the game? Like that completely blew my mind back in the day. Like what?
Man,
like when somebody showed me that.
I don't even remember that. Yeah, warp via a glitch or warp.
No, not a glitch. An actual secret in the game where you could like hop up over like the map and then run off the map and find a pipe that would then take you to
I know
the final levels.
Yep. Yeah, dude. Yeah, warp pipes. Sorry, I guess I didn't hear the pipe part. I do know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's amazing, man. It's whatever Nintendo has, and it's not for every game, but whenever Nintendo has that kind of stuff and you see these things, the longevity of their game, unlike, let's say, Bethesda's, which are built around the longevity of a flexible engine, it's the longevity of something that's pretty generic when you look at it. It's like you bounce on this guy's head, you run up here, this guy's got some spikes, so he's dangerous. This guy doesn't have spikes, so you could probably do this. And instead, 40 years later, whatever, I don't know, 30 years later, people are still doing speed runs of it that are mind-blowing and finding new shit. Like every once in a while, you hear somebody is like taking a second off of it or 2 seconds off of it, and you go and look. Oh, do you know the other ones that surprised me, Silver, was not Morrowind. Morrowind there's some Vivek kills where they go and they like kill Vivek. They're mixing potions as they run or doing something. And I was watching one. I couldn't even figure out what they were doing because it was just like not how you normally play the game. But they were able to get to the boss and kill him.
The Tetris run from a couple of months ago, like back in March.
The kid who broke the game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like got to like level 230 something, like insane.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. The skill it's mind-blowing. Sojourner has a follow-up question to this. If you could send an item of your choice to any location and point in time to screw with people, what would you do and when would you send it? That's awesome. What would you do and when would you send it? So what item would you send in what time, forward or back? I for sure think we'll all choose back. I mean, forward is easy. But if you sent back like, well, computer wouldn't work. You'd have to send something that was like, physical, somebody could use even back then. What would I send back? Send a wheel back. Let's see. What would I send back?
What if you sent like a phone, like a smartphone?
Well, they couldn't use it. Because, well, they might, if you had a non-login, they probably wouldn't even know what any of the buttons were. You know what I mean? Like I was trying to think of something physical that didn't require electricity so they could continue to experiment with it.
But wouldn't they think it's just magic? Like they?
Yeah, I mean, probably the guy who found it'd be killed. I mean, that's the honest truth, right? If you sent, depending on when you sent something back, that person would be killed. They'd be like, "Hey, look at my phone; it does calculate 2 + 2 even." And they saw that screen glowing in the dark. That dude's dead, right? That dude's dead. That's why you could send a wheel, or you'd have to send something physical. You could send penicillin back. But we'd probably be fucked if it.
But they wouldn't know what it is, though.
Yeah.
They would just.
Well, okay. Yeah, he didn't say you could leave a note.
Could you tell them? Like, could you give some instructions?
Exactly. Can
like,
I leave a note? Can I write on the beaker and say inject this if somebody's got a cold this many times?
The Fears of Louis Pasteur and stuff.
Yeah. And then go get some bread, and we'll teach you how to make it. God damn, that's hard, man, because it would have to be
You send back like a
enriched
coffee
uranium
machine
with a warning. Yeah.
coffee machine. Oh,
with some beans.
introduce a different nation to a crop that they've never had before, like coffee or pepper or salt. You could change the world in that way.
Yeah.
Like those 3 things, man. If you just gave that to somebody, imagine if you're out there, you're in some nasty field, you're all dirty, every day is eating nothing but crappy bread, and then suddenly somebody sends you like some coffee beans. Well, they had coffee then, didn't they? Or did they? No, they didn't. Coffee wasn't.
No.
I don't
I
think
think
coffee
they-
would have been there.
I don't know if they
came
had the
from
ability to
South
like make
America.
the drink itself.
Yeah, I don't think they. Yeah,
that's a good
they
question.
probably had something. They probably some root they chewed on. But
It would be shit coffee though. If you could send back, but you're right. It has to be no electricity, so it's
yeah,
rough.
you'd have to make sure that you
A
send something
guitar.
back
Can
that
you
you
send
use.
back a guitar? And they'd be like,
Well, at least with a
Whoa,
guitar, they
dude.
can strum it. Yeah, guitar. But see, the thing is, dude, it's not a guitar, but these stringed instruments have existed for fucking millennia.
yeah,
So,
true.
like, they look at it and go,
There's some stuff.
what is this? But at the same time, it would be,
Yeah, they could
imagine
work it
sending
out.
them
man.
back 8 hours of charge on a personal amp and a fucking, just a cheap Walmart guitar. And the first time that guy's like out in his field, he's done. He's got his little calloused thumbs from digging in the dirt. And he's like, brang. His family would murder him. That dude would be killed instantly. See, that's the problem. Depends on where you put it, too. Send a mini katana amp. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Let's see. Somebody recently discovered this very subtle appearance of Kate Marsh in the rooftop of the school in Life is Strange while Max is in class before the actual scene you see and make choices in later. There's actually a couple things, just so you know, in Life is Strange that are both real and maybe made up by fans. There's also, if you guys... I'm the only big Life is Strange fan here, right? Because I know
No,
Silver, it's on
I like
your
it too.
past,
Yeah.
not yet played.
Yeah.
You remember the young boy that likes her, and he's the one who helps you keep the gerbil alive? Do you remember that in the first one, Johnny? Do you even remember him? There's some videos that people have cut to make him look like a stalker, and because he's always following her, and they sort of hit right. Like you already get that. You don't get that opinion. You get that unrequited love interest, I guess, is what you would. Yeah, but they did a good job of making it look like
He's pining.
Yeah, he's pining for her, but he's staring outside her window, at 3 a.m.
Yeah,
which
it's
in
a
the
little bit. That's
1980s
true.
was considered romantic. Now, stalker. That
What
is the
was
one
the
thing
thing
I
where
always find it
you'd
weird.
stand outside their
Blaster.
house with a
That's from a
blaster,
John
like
Cusack movie. He
the
wanted
Bon
to get her
Jovi
back, and he
track.
had he had music on the
I'll-
back. Well,
Reminds
be
me
there
of
for
playing
you.
reminds me of playing Elsinore, where you play Ophelia in Hamlet, and one of the scenes is you waking up and Hamlet's just there in your
Staring
room,
at you.
like staring at you. Yeah.
Well, there is also the
Like, what the
concept,
fuck, dude.
the concept of serenading, which I mean that this goes back, way back, where you just walk up to their house or something and
sing
just
outside
like
their house. And you know that chick's marrying you because she's tired of hearing you singing. Like she holds out maybe 4 hours.
it's like,
and
will
you're
you
still
shut the
out there,
fuck up if I
"These
marry
5
you?
words I swear to you. And she's like, all right, man, whatever.
I'll be there.
Yeah. The idea of Oregon Fresh says I'm bringing the serenade back one time until you're in jail. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that was considered
wouldn't fly
romantic
today.
is wouldn't fly at all. I mean, the idea of even going to somebody's house unasked is like pretty
Dude,
rough now. Back
calling
then-
someone without texting them first.
Oh,
Some
true.
people balk
True.
at that.
Yeah, some people
Yeah.
can fuck off. That bothers
Yeah.
me. That bothers me.
But
It's like,
really.
well, my personal space. Yeah, it's a fucking phone. Ignore it if you don't want it. I have friends like that. Where
Yeah,
they'll
you can just hang up.
Yeah.
And not pick up.
pick up.
Yeah, you just don't pick up.
They didn't DM me first. It's like, what? What else do we got before we
I'm
wrap
trying
it up?
to.
Or just say I'm busy and then hang up. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not-
I used to do
Yeah.
that on the real phone, man. You pick up the phone, you
Yeah.
were gassing
can't
up the
talk right
lawnmower.
now.
You're like, I
I'm
can't talk
sorry.
right now. Who is this? Oh, Brian, I'll give you a call. And then you
Yeah.
run off to do the thing, and then you call him back.
Yeah.
And guess what? That guy didn't feel bad. He didn't go to Facebook to
No.
call you a jerk.
Yeah.
He didn't tell all of his friends to dislike your next
He waited for
tweet.
you to call. Yeah.
He waited for you to call because he was like, guess what? There's a chance Jeremy's busy. Have some confidence in yourself, Christ. Or you could even turn the ringer off or put on Don't Disturb. Yeah, man, back in the day when we didn't have you had no ability to do any of that, and you got that phone call from the person you didn't want to or whatever, and you're just sitting there looking at the phone.
I mean, you did have the ability to unplug the phone.
I did.
So there was that.
I've done that. Yeah, I've done that. Or the battery magically doesn't get charged on the cell phone. I don't do that because my cell phone doesn't take calls in, but I would. I would be the guy who just has the phone that just doesn't ever get calls in or out. What else do we got? Anything big? Let me look at my list here. Go ahead, Johnny.
Well, we had a Elden Ring patch
that
came out.
Patch. Nerfdom.
Yeah, they adjusted some stuff. There's some PvP balance.
Perfume was nerfed, Johnny.
The perfume.
Perfume.
I'm seeing here they fixed. Yeah, I'm seeing here they fixed some stuff with bosses like the hippopotamus, so like the positioning of them was kind of borked. They adjusted the range of some throwing weapons, which is interesting. So now you can throw further. But it seems like pretty small stuff. They mentioned that for people having performance issues, it could be due to a third-party mouse
software.
Let me make sure. Yeah, mouse software. Yeah, which seemed interesting.
Mouse software, Johnny, I'm assuming, I've not checked into that. It might have something to do with like my MSI has the lights that'll adjust on your PC if you're fighting a boss and stuff. Maybe it has something to do with the interlink, but it's obviously not everybody. There were real performance issues regardless of the mouse.
Yeah, no, there were, and they mentioned ray tracing. If anyone is playing with ray tracing,
turn it off.
Turn it off unless you have a 4090, and even still, you're probably
ray tracing is a Brian Bosworth of special effects, man.
Yeah, because
it looked like it was going to be amazing. It turned out to be shit.
Yeah, in this game, it can be the difference between living or dying.
Absolutely.
Right? If you have a stable,
crank that FPS up. Don't worry about his shiny ass. Like when he kills you, who gives a shit about that? You want to live, man.
You're looking at the shadow
low.
As he smashes your head.
It's like, what the fuck are you doing? If you're getting 45 frames per second, or you can get 60 to 70 without ray tracing, turn the fucking ray tracing. And ray tracing
By the way,
is such
I had
a sore spot.
An incredible, memorable boss encounter that I won't reveal anything about.
Well,
but there was like cosmic horror. I want to share this because it was an amazing moment that I didn't expect. It was a side quest line in the game that I followed. And in the end, there was this amazing boss encounter, like cosmic horror. I was creeped the fuck out. The arena was amazing looking. So yeah, the DLC has some areas that are even, rivaling the original game with creativity. And you didn't think so?
No. I know who you're talking about, and I definitely liked him, but I still think it's only equal to some of the amazing. Well, I don't know. I just wasn't as impressed.
It is easy to take for granted the stuff that we already know from the original, I guess, when you compare it like that.
Yeah, I guess this is a side quest, you said?
Yep, it's a church side quest.
Boss is what we should say, right?
It involves you going to Finger Ruins. I think that's pretty spoiler-free.
Finger Ruins sounds...
Finger Ruins, you ring a bell at them, there's a big boss at the end.
There you go. Powder Cake says ray tracing is good for indoor walking sims with lots of blinds. No, I was just teasing you, by the way. They're probably equal. So if some are equal, they can be better. I just felt that overall, Elden Ring was more of a new thing. So therefore, my brain was more attached to the new thing than the repeat of the new thing. That's also good, very good, very good. Nothing against the DLC, but I do want to point out. I heard Silver say something, so I want to ask him. We were talking about that. We were talking about the nerfs, and you go, I hate that. I'm pretty sure I heard you say, I hate that under your voice. Did you mean you hate the nerfs in a single player game like that? Is that what you were talking about in particular, or what do you mean?
I mean, I don't necessarily hate nerfs, but I do hate a bunch of the nerfs that FromSoft has been doing to Elden Ring, to like invalidate some builds. Like it just, I don't know. It doesn't feel great when you find something that works and then the equation gets changed.
Right.
that can mess things up a bit, especially if it's a build you really, really enjoy, and all of a sudden,
it's no longer
the
fun
reasons
to play.
why you enjoyed it change that equation for you, right? Like
and to be fair, I don't think
I had that happen with my Sword and Shield build, where they significantly nerfed the blessing on the shield that basically made it so that you could block without losing stamina, and you could basically block any attack in the game without losing stamina.
But to be fair, that sounds a bit OP, Silver. That sounds a bit abusive.
Yeah, but you still had to get the shield, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
yeah, you did, and you also had to like capitalize on it, which was potentially risky, because you still exposed yourself then, and then you could get hurt. So there was still an element of risk there. You just had to know when to pay it off, and learn that. And I found that really rewarding. And then they sort of flipped that, which I found disappointing.
Here's what I'm okay with. There was a couple things. Perfume de Toilette, who supposedly was fucked up and was hitting twice. Whatever. Okay. I agree with you on everything else, though. That one I think is okay. I'm not saying it's okay to patch. I don't control the thing. I'm saying that doesn't bother me so much. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, if it looks like it's like an unintended glitch like that,
yeah, double of even what it says, that is wrong and a bug.
Yes.
But what you're talking about, the balance is already between the player, the difficulty, and the experience already. I don't need them to go in and be fucking finger-holing my game character just because they want to jump in later. In fact, I would just tell people, turn your Steam game off, or turn your Steam update off. If you like the way it's playing, turn off updates.
Maybe. And it was especially disappointing because there are so many other ways you can break the game, like difficulty-wise, with builds in Elden Ring, and that they haven't fixed or addressed. Right. So,
that was the ability to summon at all. I'm just joking.
Yeah,
I think they like that. That's so stupid.
They've done a good job with the DLC patches, not capping any builds in a way. In the original game, by the way, they did hard nerf, for example, lightning, right? So a lot of people loved lightning, and they at some point just hard nerfed it, to which it was like, it wasn't even worth using it. I think they kind of learned from that, and now the adjustments are a bit more like
in line
incremental.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, trying to just fix stuff that's abusive or like clearly not.
Well, and the idea that somebody like what Silver's saying, like, let's say you're walking along and they just and this happens with a lot of games where they absolutely adjust the currency. And if you've figured out what works for you, and by the way, I'm not talking about a cheat. I'm talking about you just figured out what works for you for the currency grind in some game somewhere, and somebody goes in and is arbitrarily like dropped Bitcoin price by 50%. You're like, what the fuck? That makes no sense. Like, why are we just doing this on a single player game? Which is why, those kind of patches bother me, especially when we're still got performance issues. By the way, I'm not talking even about Elden Ring. Any game. It's like I would rather have them just be like, let's crunch away. There's real errors that they fixed in this one I saw, and those are great. They fixed, like you said, placement of some enemies and stuff like that. That makes sense because some enemies, were sort of borked or they spawned in wrong or, what have you. That all makes sense. That's completely doable.
Yeah.
But I mean, they had to have play tested it. And I don't see how they couldn't have seen like that some of these things are just the way they work. There's just also, I don't know about you guys. Here's what I've found. If I have a broken build, there is almost notoriously a boss that somehow that broken build doesn't work against.
Or like resistant to the specific.
Absolutely.
damage.
For me, like that boss was Melania, because Melania healed even when she just hit my shield and didn't damage me. She would heal herself. So like just blocking all of her attacks, she would basically just heal herself up, right? Well, I didn't damage her. So she was an effective counter to my broken build, as it were.
She was a true boss for me too, because I was pretty strength build at the time. And it sort of changed. Well, a couple bosses changed it up where I was like, score. Whoa, what the fuck? This guy just doesn't give a shit that I hit hard because he's got some other thing that makes me either not hit hard, not able to hit, or he doesn't care at certain times. And to me, that's okay, man. They don't all need to be. This is called challenge rating in role-playing games, by the way, and I fucking hate it. And that's where you look at the exact level of the people and their inventories, and you can identify a challenge rating that will use up the exact amount of resources you want. So you say, these people level 12, they've got 10 healing potions. This challenge rating means they'll have 1 healing potion when they're done, and they'll almost be dead. To me, that is the very antithesis of fun. That is some kind of bullshit.
It's math.
It's math, yes, and it's a math that many gamers don't understand, nor really should they. If I have 10 health potions and the game knows I have 10 and it's doing shit because I have 10, what if I drop those in 3 minutes? Like, what if I decide I want something else and I drop those? It should still be up to me and the way I interact with the game.
That's where the fun of tabletop role-playing games are. It's that adaptability. It's not the equation.
Yeah,
it's the ability to adapt things on the fly and decide things on the fly at that point. And improvise.
It's just, and luckily we don't have a lot of developers who do that. I think what I saw here looked pretty intelligent because Perfume was doing was glitched. It was hitting twice from what I understand, and Solar showed me that a magic build can be fun. I don't know if you guys have ever done a magic build, but I do them, test them, but I'm usually some kind of physical build. And I watched him playing yesterday with a magic build, and I was like, that looked legit fun in that game. I never thought I would enjoy that, but
from what I've seen and heard, like magic builds are some of the easiest ways to break the game. At least the original one.
Yeah, he wasn't breaking it yet, but he was hitting really well and fun. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but a lot of times in a magic game, like in Skyrim, I loved using magic, but a lot of times it was like fire, ice, that was it. Like, I knew exactly what would happen, and you're like, I'm going to hit the guy from this far away. He was doing shit where sometimes he'd miss, and then when he did hit, he still had to dodge. He still had to do all the stuff that a normal dexterity build or what have you would have to do, but he was pulling off these really cool moves, and it just felt right. I was like, man, that nailed it, because a lot of games don't. It's just like a lot of games don't hit ranged well. They hit up close well, or they hit ranged poorly and they hit up close the opposite, whatever I'm saying. Like Outer Worlds, where the moment you grab a weapon, you start swinging at people, you're like, this ain't good. Like, this doesn't feel good. Is that about it for us? We'll wrap this one up a little bit early.
I did have a really cool moment in like Phasmophobia this week. One of the coolest I've had in the game in a while, where we were playing on the new lighthouse level. And the ghost was on the ground floor of it, in the common area, and I was setting stuff up in the common area, and then all of a sudden it shows itself, like it manifests, and it stands in the doorway to the common area, and it uses like the axe murderer model, which is kind of this intimidating big guy. He could be a lighthouse keeper, so it was very, very appropriate. And he just stands there going for like 20 seconds, staring at me. I snap his picture, and he disappears, and I go, he seemed kind of pissed at me, so I got to get out of here. And the main door is like a couple of meters away from the door to the common room, so I figure I'm out of here in a second. But as I reach the main door, it slams shut, like right as I get there. And then he spawns right behind me, and he immediately murders me. I have no time to go anywhere. Just kills me instantly.
Do you guys get the chance to come back and take it back
for a good 5 minutes after that?
To like
no. Actually, funnily enough, like there are cursed objects in the game that can do various stuff, and on that level we found the monkey paw, which is a monkey hand that you can use to make wishes, and you like every wish you make, it like curls a finger on the hand. And one of the wishes you can make is I wish for life, which is you can resurrect a dead party member. So Lemon did actually pick up the monkey hand and wish for life, and then he got killed, and I got resurrected for it, like it traded that way.
Thanks, Lemon. Do you guys? What is this? 4-player or 3? How many?
We were 3 players in that session.
That's cool. Yeah, there's a lot of like horror games I've noticed lately. That's not new or anything, but I've noticed when I was looking at Steam, a lot of co-op, a lot of horror games are popping lately. I've always wanted to play one, but most of my friends don't like horror games too much, and they're not always deep. That one's deep. There's another one that uses AI now, and it can hear what you're talking about on your mic, and it will use ChatGPT to figure out ways to scare you, which I thought was really cool. I got to see if it's panned out, but I thought that was an awesome idea. And then I like any of the ones that do the audio, because in Phasmagoria it's also audio, isn't it? Also tied.
Phasmophobia does tie into your mic and using your mic. Yeah, like you have to sometimes you have to talk to the ghost, say specific phrases for like communicating to it with it through a spirit box, like through a radio. And sometimes like you can say its name and it'll get angry, and you can agitate it. You like talking to it and stuff. Yeah.
So here at the end, we're trying to wrap up contests and stuff like that. Make sure that there's some reason for you guys to stick to the end. So what's a new game that's come out recently or is coming out? Let's see what's coming out next. We know there's you got.
Let me check.
Assassin's Creed is Too Far Away.
Just a couple. Check my wish list.
I want to give away a game here. So what'll happen is while they're looking, we'll find a game to give away. What you need to do is once the podcast is done, you just go to the channel and you leave a comment, answer the question, and we'll pick it just like we did with Elden Ring. Wukong in August. That sounds. Ooh, that's August though. We got anything in July? July's pretty dead. We got EDF in July.
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
EDF 6, July 25th.
I know not everybody's going to be interested in that.
There isn't anything
July's
that
a little lean.
Mainstream that I'm seeing. Yeah, it's quite lean.
So what
Maybe
we'll do,
we can look at June, see if there's anything big.
Flintlock comes out July 18th.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll do a copy of Flintlock. Or how about this? The person who wins can choose Flintlock or EDF. Or
that's a good
Once Human. That'll
mix.
work. I can do those. So either one of those three games, the question that you will need to answer in the comments.
What?
Johnny, you got
Can I give an idea?
Yes.
What's the best dungeon in a game?
Oh yeah, that works.
That you've experienced.
So why? And why? Because
and remember
people
like
give good
the why.
answers, but the why matters.
Yeah, the why is important. Like in that answer, the answer wasn't as cool or important as the.
And I'll be using
thought
anti AI checks, so don't be using AI to answer this. Goddammit.
Oh.
Go in there. So at the end of the video, when we finally wrap it up, go in. What is the best dungeon and why? And by the way, I know somebody's going to say this, so I'm going to answer it now. What is a dungeon? And the reason why I bring that up is because for one person, it may be underwater in Manan on KOTOR because it's underwater and therefore they think something's over their head. It's now a dungeon. We're going to say dungeons are like truly dungeons, things that we know of as dungeons. Classic dungeon. You go into, whether it be catacombs, tombs, what have you, Mines of Moria, you go in there. And why is it the best? Why did it work in the game? Whether because it's different or because it just perfectly fit. And as we wrap this up, let's end it with something good, man. Anybody been doing
Something
anything
positive.
amazing? Something positive? Anything like anybody? Like that sounded like a good experience with Phasmophobia. I got it right this time. Has anybody been playing anything awesome? I lost 8 hours in Watch Dogs Legion yesterday. That is not awesome. That sucked.
Did you do something different that you hadn't done before?
No, the game crashed. Oh, yeah. You mean, yeah. I
Like
got a
in the
character
game?
I loved, and I spent, this is unusual for me, because I know what I want a character to look like. I spent like 2 hours during our live stream yesterday in the Discord, streaming me dressing the character, of all things. I liked her. I liked her skills. So I spent a while. I bought stuff. I was so excited. I was like, dude, I really like this. Might be my main for a while. Started playing, crashed. And I was like, well, it auto-saves. But guess what? If it crashes on GeForce Now, there's no app that can still run to load the autosave. And it didn't. And I lost like 4 hours of gameplay. That sucked balls. And that killed me a little bit. Like that was a rough one. That's a negative though. We're trying to end some of the positive. I will tell you guys, it's been a pretty fucking awesome week with 4th of July here. SBZ $5 super chat. Thank you very much. That's what I was just going to talk about was 4th of July. My dog slept through it too. And then today escaped through a door. We do not know how they got open and ended up like a mile and a half away, and we had to go chase him down right before the podcast. Luckily, everybody's safe, but I was, when you hear something run past your window, I was like, well, not you guys live in apartments. If you hear somebody run past a 3rd-story apartment, you'd be like, there's a ghost. But I heard something go by, and I was like, what is that? My wife's like, the dogs are out. They got out. I was like, damn. Yeah, we had a good 4th of July. It was fun, man. Like, it was really cool. A lot of big explosions going on. I wish I could have went and seen them, but wasn't able to get out and do it. Been watching Acolyte. It is as bad as people say, and it is fun to watch, but it is bad. It really is
fun to watch, though.
Yeah, they do have some callbacks to Legends. Now, I don't know if you do Legends, but like Silver and I, the older KOTOR stuff, they took that out and said it's no longer canon, but they've been injecting it in almost every TV show a little bit. What they really meant to say was, we choose what's canon. All this shit's closed off until we put it back in. And what they put in, there's been about 3 things in one, maybe 5, one in every episode. And the newest thing, I'm like, oh, if this was a good show, this would be awesome. Instead, it's like, I wish this was in a better show, because there's a couple things that they're playing around with.
Because if they already use it now, they can't really do it again.
That's the only thing. It's almost like winning on a bet you didn't put all your money down on. And you're like, oh.
Stories from the expanded.
Yeah, there's stories from that Legends side that I always talk about, where like the books and and some of it had power creep that was unbelievable. If Silver and I were talking about Force Unleashed, where they stop a Star Destroyer, that ain't nothing compared to some of the stuff in Legends. You were just reading it going, what?
Yeah, that's true.
That's not the Force. That is the universe that person can control. This is stupid. I mean,
to be fair, even in Knights of the Old Republic, where you had
absolutely
Darth Nihilus wiping out an entire planet with the Force.
I got to admit, though, he was my man. I dug that dude. I dug that dude. He's like,
also because like that power came at such a terrible price.
Yeah,
where he was just like, the power was all
just
that
empty,
he was,
and he was always hungry.
There was no like agenda or anything. It was just the hunger to consume.
Whenever you're really hungry, imagine like a billion of that is how they explain that character's desire for the Force and for life energy. And he was awesome. He wasn't even really strong as a Sith in the way
that was like the big thing was the confrontation with him was kind of anticlimactic in that game.
Anybody else watching anything or reading anything good?
I've been watching House of the Dragon. That's been pretty good for people who like, fantasy.
What are we
Episode 3 in the 2nd season. Yeah, it's been pretty good.
Is it as sexified?
There has been a little bit of gratuitous, but I would say it's not as much as like Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Watching White Collar now that I'm done with From. Rogerio's finally
that's a
taking
good
my
show.
advice. White Collar.
I watched it many years ago, but I really liked it.
We are in season 5 right now. We watched 2 episodes last night, and I'm like, and it's coming back. That's what's crazy. It's coming back fully.
You told me, so they're doing like with the same
every
cast,
actor is coming back. The only one who isn't is the bald guy who passed away. He died of pancreatic cancer. Fucking dude, whatever. Yeah, we all know cancer sucks. But I feel like every day I wake up,
especially
but I'm waiting for to see William Shatner, on a title, and that's the day I don't do the podcast, man. Like that, because it's just somebody I grew up with. He's it's nobody special to a lot of people, but to me, it's like that. I grew up with that guy. But man,
has he done anything recently?
Yeah, he did the hilarious. Did you guys not see this? He did the Canadians against open net fishing video a couple days ago, where it's playing off Canadians being nice, and instead he's like dropping middle fingers, and all the Canadians are like, "You fucking," and it's just bleeping everything, and they're like, "Stop with the open netting, you fucking," and it's beep 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 beep, and it's got all these Canadian people pretending to be nice and then like yelling at the camera, and he did that. He did the full. He starts it and then ends that commercial, but it's
it ends in the hockey arena.
Yeah, no, it doesn't, but that would be amazing if they're like, "Oh, you think you're badass? Come to our hockey." Anyway, that'll be it for us. I want to thank everybody for showing up. Y'all rock. Remember, It has to be a dungeon for the question. When we end the podcast, you can go to the video. You can leave a comment on the video. And if you don't want to answer that, I would absolutely love if you did that either here or on iTunes and Spotify. By the way, so that people know, we only had like 5-6 reviews on Spotify. It raised us up like 5 places, which then gets more listeners and always
so you can make a difference.
You can make it. You can stop forest fires. And yeah, it helps. Man, it helped out big time. I saw the chart and I was like, whoa, we're higher. And then I went back and looked. There was something else I was going to say as we wrapped. Oh, people are asking about how we're doing the podcast. Currently Fridays. Absy can't make Fridays because it is now 12:30 in the morning for him. And he told me in January when I had my power outage, he was like, man, this is going to be hard for me to continue to do it. Now they moved to Saudi Arabia from Canada. We're still planning on doing the Wednesday one. I'm working with tonight. Actually, I'm working with somebody at YouTube to try to figure out why I can't make a second channel. I can, but it doesn't stick, and we're trying to figure that out. And if we do, we'll make a second channel. We'll move the podcast to that. That way people can watch it, and I can post it without it killing the reviews. And next week, you will see reviews from me on the, can't say what day, maybe one next week, and then 2 the week after. Anyway, that is it for me. Peace out, everybody. Thank you to Johnny. And, oh, one last thing. Johnny, what are you streaming tomorrow?
League of Legends tomorrow, 9 a.m. EST time. I think it's 6
a.m. for us. Yep.
KARAK Standard Time.
6.
Bright and early.
KARAK, that is early. And that is early on a Saturday for a lot of people. But
yeah,
that'll be it for us. Peace out, everybody.
Of dawn.
Playing the crack of games, too, technically, when you think about it. Peace out, everybody.
Yeah, kind of. Take care.
Dog, you're fine.